ותמוך עלינו, תמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו תמלוך, תמלוך את צביעות בכל יום בימינו, בכל העולם איש ותתגעת ותתגעת זוהי ירושה עימך לדור לדור ולנצח נצח ועינינו ועל ידי דוד, ועל ידי דוד, משיח צדקך. ועל ידי דוד, ועל ידי דוד, משיח צדקך.
Thank you.
Si el drachma saladiato moyata puedo mantenerla. De tu madre no la como, ay, dama, 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 que te quiero detener. De tu madre no la como, ay, dama, 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 que te quiero detener. Fuggiremos dalla pena. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות,
Hey, welcome to the World Alliance of Qara'im about Torah study. I am Hakham Melech of the World Alliance of Qara'im. And this week we are studying Partat Tzav, Leviticus 1 through 8:36, basically 3 chapters, 6, 7, and 8. That's the deal. Not too long, not too short this time. We've had some longer ones. We've had some double parsha. Last week, I think, was double parsha. And we've had some shorter ones. This is reasonable. We'll see what we can get through. And we'll do the best we can. So welcome everyone who's here. And thank you for joining us. And let's begin. All right. This. Alrighty. All right. Let's stop the music. And off we go. Let me share the screen differently. Whoa. I think that's the way I usually do it. We can do it that way. 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 No, let's do it. I think I usually do it this way. Okay, so we're going to start in Leviticus chapter 6. And that is chapter 8. Let's move back 1 or 2. We've got our commentaries all locked and loaded. So we've been constantly building up our arsenal. I'm using, I guess, military or shooting terms today. I don't know why. Maybe because in the United States, which thankfully I'm not in and haven't been for a number of years. God, what a sick country that is. A dilapidated, decaying mess. Any rate, what was I going to say? Yes, so we have a different number of different commentaries. So we always kind of use as our base Robert Alter. He's good, solid, go-to kind of material. Has an excellent translation, lots of insights, and is often kind of a jumping point or starting off point for ideas or other commentaries. Once in a while, if we want to get another perspective on translation, we'll use the Shulchan Bible by Everett Fox. There's no commentary here, it's just a translation, but it kind of allows us to triangulate, I guess, or cross-reference another good translation, see if they use the same translation as, let's say, Robert Alter or not. Then we've got, we've been doing Ibn Ezra. I don't have it up right now. Sometimes, if we want a good laugh, we'll go to the worst commentator, the worst Torah commentator ever in the history of all Torah commentators. That, of course, would be Rashi, who is basically worshipped as a demigod by the stupid Rabbinites. That's their problem. Horrible, horrible, nonsensical commentator. I think he's either like disconnected from reality, or I don't know, in some alternate reality I don't want anything to do with. I guess that's what happens when you're stuck in Sephardi Europe in the Middle Ages. He lived in southern France. Okay, then we've been going to Rabbi Dr. Hertz. This is the Chumash that I had in my synagogue growing up, which my mother and father dragged me to against my will. So I don't know if I paid much attention to it back then, but it's a good commentary. It's good, solid. Then lately, for the past couple weeks, we've been trying this commentary, which is, I always forget the exact name. Let me see. 1 second. 1 second, please. The Cultural Backgrounds Bible, or something like that. So, as the name would imply, it gives a lot of cultural backgrounds. For Leviticus, we have the commentary by Jacob Milgram. Milgram is with this huge commentary. So, this is Leviticus 1 through 16, and it has 1,182 pages. He's basically an expert on, I guess you could say, on the book of Leviticus, on issues pertaining to the priestly service. And that is it. That's the commentaries we've been using. Maybe over time we'll add more. Maybe we'll take some away if we feel we don't connect with them. But that's what we've been doing. So we're going to dig in with Leviticus chapter 6 at the very beginning, just to get a little bit of background. I think last time we got up to just 1. I don't think we got further than 1 because it's very detailed. Right? We spoke about the laws for the burnt offerings. Maybe we got to the grain offerings. I can't remember. Let's see. We have our thingy here. Yes, that's the official name, thingy. So we got the beginning of the grain offerings. After that, we have what are called usually the peace offerings, sin offerings, etc. But sin offerings, as we mentioned last year, and as many commentators will point out, are not a good translation. And the more of these purification offerings, sin/purification, or purification from sin offerings. And Leviticus 6 of the guilt offering. So now we go into Leviticus 7, and we're going to be getting into the guilt offering. But let me just see something here. The burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering. Sins requiring a guilt offering, and so we can get a little bit of context. Okay. People, a lot of can have a book of living, a real snoozer, and then wake up around is when we get to various stories about this in the desert, and then Deuteronomy is always a winner. But Exodus and Leviticus are kind of holes in the Tanakh because they're very technical. They can be technical. I find them absolutely fascinating. The entire sacrificial system, which is what Leviticus is. A brilliant kind of system. It's very systematic. And what we can do is try to bring it to life a little bit by systematizing it or by kind of cataloging it. As began to last week, and get a bit more visual where possible, showing pictures. So that's what I can do. Hopefully, you'll appreciate the brilliance of the structure, which I can honestly say I haven't yet grasp it. It's very complex. You really need chart parts. This guy, we will try our best to sense case. Let's dig in. Go back to Leviticus 6. Oh, wait a second. We're starting. Yeah, we're 5. No, that was a 6. Laws for back in the this one again. Oh, so let's dig. No. Casey. Oh, Casey. Oh, we're digging in at the 5 about guilt. We should do well. The chances and more through this offering off for so actually, but it's quality study, and that's good. So now we're up. The connection is very poor. Yeah, unfortunately, there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. The only thing I could do is maybe stop the camera. I don't even think that's going to help. Maybe this will make it a little bit better because sometimes the internet connection gets a little bit not good here. I'm assuming it's on my side. There's nothing I can do about it. I live in a small town, and the internet connection cannot be improved. I have not installed what you call fiber optics here. So that's the best I can do. I'll keep the camera off for a couple of minutes, which should reduce the bandwidth, and then if I remember, I'll put it back on. At least you can see the screen. Okay, so here we go. We're in Leviticus chapter 5, starting in verse 14. Nothing like water. Okay. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, verse 15, נפש כי תמעול מעל וחטאה בשחרה מקדשי יחווה, והביא את שמו ליחווה עיל תמים מן הסון בעיר כסף שקולים בשקל הקודש לאשם. Okay, so anyone, a person who tim'ol ma'al. So what is this tim'ol ma'al? So usually it's translated as a trespass. What the heck does that mean? A trespass. Okay. All right. Let's try to get. Oh, can you find that? Yeah, it goes on and off, and there's just like I said, there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. As I mentioned, we live in a very, very small town in thank God, in the middle of nowhere. And they don't have advanced internet here. So there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. There's no way. I've been trying to get them to install it for a couple of years now, and it hasn't happened. So I'm at the mercy of old internet technology. There's nothing I can do about it. All right. So what is this tim'ol ma'al? To commit a trespass. What the heck is a trespass? That's right. What does it mean? You snuck into the temple late at night and smoked a joint or something like that. What are we talking about? Committing a trespass. All right, let's do a little Robert Alter. We have to go back to 5. That's where we are. What verse is it again? Leviticus 5:14. So he translates it as a person betrayed trust. Okay. Everett Fox. Let's get Everett Fox going here. 30. Go back a bit. 14, 13, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay. A person when he breaks faith. Yes, faith. So he's picking up. So Everett Fox there is picking up on this repetition here, right? Repetition, as we always say, means emphasis in the Torah. So he's picking up on that emphasis by actually translating with repetition, right? So ma'al means somehow some kind of breach of faith. But what kind of breach of faith are we talking about? Let's go to the BDB for a second, okay? So an unfaithful, treacherous act is the Strong's. Strong's usually gets its translations or its interpretations or its definitions from the BDB. Unfaithful, treacherous act, as we can see here. And we have a whole bunch of references where that occurs. So the first time it occurs is actually here. But let's see if we can get it in a better context. So Numbers 5:27 might be a good example. So Numbers 5:27, let me just go to the English. Oh boy, the internet is acting freaky deaky again. Okay, so if we go to the English, this is the NIV. So 5:27. So this is the test for an unfaithful wife, right? This is a man who suspects that his wife has been unfaithful. In the Tanakh, there is only one definition for adultery. It's not the modern definition of adultery, okay? The modern definition of adultery, I'll try to put back on the camera. Ben or Ariella, if you cannot hear me now because the extra bandwidth of the camera, let me know and I'll turn the camera off again. The modern definition of adultery is if either spouse cheats on his wife or husband, right? That's the modern definition. That is not the Torah definition of adultery. The Torah definition of adultery is sleeping with a married woman or an engaged woman. If a woman is married or engaged to a man, then she, in a sense, belongs to him, right? And that I mean that very literally, right? When you take a wife, you lokeach or you koneh, you acquire a wife, right? The wife, in a sense, sorry, ladies, becomes the possession of the man. I don't mean that in a bad way, right? It doesn't mean that the husband can mistreat the wife, but she becomes within his purview. She becomes a permanent part of his household. She essentially becomes adjoined or attached to his household. Okay, so when if another man sleeps with, and what I mean by sleeps with is has vaginal intercourse with that woman, then that is adultery. Okay. Now, obviously, if it's intentional, and this is spoken about explicitly later on in the Tanakh, if it's intentional on the part of both parties, and so the punishment for adultery in the Tanakh, sleeping with it, the definition of adultery in Tanakh is sleeping with a married woman, also an engaged woman, but we'll just stick with a married woman, right, to make it simple. Okay. The punishment for adultery is death. Okay. It is one of the 10 commandments, lo tin'af. Okay. Usually translated as do not commit adultery, but misunderstood, it really means do not sleep, do not have sexual intercourse with a married woman, okay, or an engaged woman. So the punishment is death. Now, obviously, logic, explicit laws in the Torah show, and logic predicates that it depends on the situation. This is why we have judges. The judges take the concepts that are laid out in the Torah, and maybe a better way of saying that the laws that are laid out in the Torah, but maybe a better way rather than calling them laws would be concepts. Okay, because the idea of the Torah, as far as I've really come to understand it over the years, is it's not really so much a set of laws. It is, but it's more a set of concepts that are supposed to be understood, internalized, and then used by judges, not by Jesus, by judges to adjudicate cases, right? Using their wisdom and using the concepts that they find in the Torah. So any wise judge would realize that everything is contextual, right? So he's going to judge the case, or she. There are women judges, very rare, but also possible. We know Torah was a judge. That but we'll stick with he. That the judge is going to judge the case based on the merits of that particular case. So logic would dictate that if both parties agreed, right, to having relations together, then both parties are put to death, right? If only one party agreed, right, then only that party would be put to death, right? So let's say the man raped the married woman. It would not make any logical sense in such a situation. And this is explicit later in the Torah for the woman to be put to death, right? It would make sense for the man to be put to death, right? On the other hand, let's say the woman seduced the man, right? Well, I guess you could say if it's seduced, then maybe the man had some choice, but that would be for the judges to decide. Let's say she used her womanly wiles like the Midianites did, right, to seduce. Well, in that case, the men were put to death, weren't they? Now, but at any rate, let's say a woman does what I don't know what Potiphar's wife wanted to do to Yosef, and basically grabs the man and forces herself upon him. Then maybe the woman would only be put to death, right? But that's the idea, okay? That is what adultery is. How the heck did we get onto adultery? I have no idea. Oh yes, we were in Numbers. We're talking about this idea of ma'al, right? So we see that this same word occurs in Numbers 31:16. No, not Numbers 31:16. In Numbers 5:27. Okay, and I don't want to go on this too far, but here we have a test. If a man suspects that his woman has committed adultery, that his wife has committed adultery, that she has slept with another man, so there's basically a trial by fire, so to speak. And here in verse 27, so she has to drink the bitter waters, okay? And here in verse 27, it says, if she has made herself impure, and by the way, that basically means ritual impurity. When a man releases semen into a woman, then both the man and the woman become ritually impure. Okay, so that's referring to actually having vaginal intercourse. So, although I did hear someone claim that this means some kind of moral impurity, but I don't think so. Okay, and been unfaithful to her husband. Okay, this is the result. When she's made to drink the water, these are the famous bitter waters, the test that are kind of a divine test as to whether trial by fire as to whether the woman did or did not commit the sin. Brings a curse and causes bitter suffering. It will enter her abdomen will swell, and her womb will miscarry, and she will become a curse. If, however, the woman has not made herself impure but is clean, she will be cleared of guilt and will be able to have children. Right. The point being that in verse 27, the English says, if she's made herself impure and has been unfaithful to her husband, this is the result, right? And then we have the result. In Hebrew, let's go over to the Hebrew for this one. So this is 5:27. What? Yeah. Verse 27 here. וישקע את המים והייתה אם. So it shall be if nitmata, if she has been impure, if she has been unfaithful to her husband, or if she has become impurified by having intercourse with another man, ותמעול מעל באישה, באישה. Okay, and if she has basically committed a trespass, Fox translated, maybe he was the best translation. If she has broken faith, yes, faith, right? Repetition, right? Or if she's certainly broken faith, or if she's certainly committed a trespass, committed an act of faithlessness against her husband, ba'ishah, right? This is the possessive here. This is not isha, meaning a woman. This is ishah. There's a nikud inside the hay. There's a little dot inside the hay. That means it's aspirated. It's isha. And that is the female, the feminine singular possessive suffix, right? So if she has been unfaithful against her husband, okay, and then all the bad stuff is going to happen, right? So here we have another example in a different context of this word tim or tim ma'al, all right, been unfaithful, betrayed, trespassed, etc. Okay, maybe we'll take one more example. Okay, Joshua 22:20, that could work. Let's go to Joshua 22:20. Okay, so Joshua 22:20. Right. Okay, this is a good one. So we have a situation here. Just one second. One second. So we have a situation that this dude, Achan, okay, who's mentioned actually first in Joshua 7, okay, there is spoils of war. So let's just get the context here. This gives us a little chance to dig a bit more into the Tanakh, right? So let's go back again. So this is the attack on Jericho, right? So the walls came tumbling down, blah, 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 blah. We all know that, right? And then we have in Joshua 7, I'll just read it very quickly in English so we can kind of go through it. So in Joshua 7, but the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. This is a bad translation. The spoils of Jericho were supposed to be dedicated to Yahweh, right? Let's find that exactly. On the seventh day, when the trumpets to men spy they burn the whole city. Goodbye, Jericho. 17 was it? Where is it? 1 second here. Here. So in Joshua 6, chapter 17, okay, we'll start here in verse 16. Again, I'm just going to read in English to make it go a bit more quickly. The seventh time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, shout, for the Lord has given you the city, talking about Jericho. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord, right? So all of the spoils are supposed to be given to God, right? Nobody's to take the spoils. And once you dedicate something to God, it becomes holy. It becomes kadosh, right? It becomes sanctified, right? It now has special status. It really becomes the province of there was no temple back then, but the tabernacle, the priests, the Levites, okay? Only Rahab, the prostitute, and all who are with her in her house shall be spared because she hid the spies we sent. Okay, we know about Rahab. But keep away from the devoted things so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and the gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury. Okay, so that's what's supposed to happen with the spoils. That is what Joshua declares. Joshua dedicates the spoils of the destruction of Jericho to God, to Yahweh. Okay, And once that's done, once once he has made that declaration, okay, then no one is allowed to take the spoils, okay? But it's very tempting when you see all that gold and all that silver and all that bronze, okay? So we have a dude, but the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. There's actually one Israelite, okay? Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerach of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. And by the way, this is obviously a different Zimri, right? We have Pinchas, the son of Zimri, right? That was Pinchas' father's name, I believe so. But that was from the tribe of the Levites, right? Yes. Okay, so the son of Zimri, the son of Zerach, blah blah blah. Okay, so we have this guy Achan. He took some of the spoils. To make a long story short, after they attack Jericho, they attack a city named Ai, usually translated in English, and they lose. They get routed in battle, right? So about 3,000 went up, Israelites were talking about, but they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted in fear and became like water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there until evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, "Alas, sovereign Lord, why did you bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we do that. If only we had been content to stay on blah, 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 blah." And then God responds to Joshua, right? Joshua was a prophet. So Yahweh said to Joshua, "Stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They've taken some of the devoted things. They've stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. This is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they've been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction." Okay? So so it turns out that God found out. I guess it's not too hard for God to do that since he's God after all. that Israelites had taken these spoils of war, which is supposed to be devoted to the treasury of the tabernacle of the temple, the tabernacle. Okay, and then there was a kind of lot that was drawn, right? So let's read here. Again, I'm just going to go in the English to make it go more quickly. In the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe that the Lord, that Yahweh chooses, shall come forth clan by clan. The clan that the Lord chooses shall come forth family by family. And the family that the Lord chooses shall come forward man by man. So we're going to narrow down, right, who took the spoils, okay? Whoever is caught with the devoted things will be destroyed by fire along with all that belongs to him. He has violated the covenant of Yahweh and has done an outrageous thing in Israel. And so we have this lot. So Judah was chosen, okay, some kind of lot, maybe using the Urim and Tumim. It doesn't say explicitly, but some kind of lot was drawn, L-O-T. And the Zerites, okay, so the clan was the Zerites. The family of Zimri was chosen. And then Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, in other words, the grandson of Zimri, was chosen. And then Joshua said to Achan, "My son, give glory to Yahweh, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me." Achan replied, "It is true, I have sinned against the Lord, against Yahweh, the God of Israel. This is what I've done. When I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath." Bad move. Okay. So Joshua sent messengers and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites and spread them out before Yahweh. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, the son of Zerach, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons, his daughters, his cattle, donkeys, and sheep, his tent, and all he had to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." Then all of Israel stoned him. After that, they stoned the rest. They had stoned the rest. They burned them. Over Achan, they heaped a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then Yahweh turned his fierce anger. Therefore, that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since. Okay. And Nachor, as the footnote says here, means trouble. Okay. So this is what happened. Okay. So this is what happened with Achan. Okay. I guess his entire family took place in that. So they were all burnt. They were all stoned to death. And so that seems a little bit rough, right? I mean, listen, it's natural to want gold and silver, but they caused God to turn away from the Israelites. They caused Israelites to die. So in a sense, there was blood on their hands by doing this thing. And so they were put to death. Okay. So the point being that we were looking here in Joshua 22. So that's Joshua 7. If we go back now to Joshua 22, so this is a much later story. And let's look at this in English for a second. So the eastern tribes, right? The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Remember, the deal was that they can settle on the other side of the Jordan with the condition that they help the rest of Israel conquer the land west of the Jordan. Okay, so they did that, and now they go back home. Those 3 or 2.5 tribes, I should say, they go back home. And then we have, let's see. One second. Where was this? Okay, so then there is an altar that they build over here. So when they came, we're talking about the 2.5 tribes, okay? When they came to Glilot near the Jordan in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh built an imposing altar there by the Jordan. And when the Israelites heard that they had built an altar on the border of Canaan at Glilot near the Jordan on the Israelite side, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to go to war against them. So the Israelites sent Pinchas, son of Eleazar, the priest, to the land of Gilad, to Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. With him they sent 10 of the chief men, one from each of the tribes of Israel, each the head of a family division among the Israelite clans. And when they went to Gilad, to Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh, they said to him, the whole assembly of Yahweh says, how could you break faith with the Lord like this? And I wonder also if that, let me just bring this up in Hebrew. Joshua 22. Oops. Joshua 22. Let's go to Hebrew. So where were we? We were in Joshua 22, 10. No, 16. So Joshua 22, 16 is where we are here. So let's see it in Hebrew. So in Hebrew, we have that same word again, ma'al, right? Remember, all of this is because we're trying to figure out the meaning of this word ma'al, which eventually lead us back to Leviticus 5. But it's nice to take detours in the Nach, right? It's good. The whole idea of us being Karaites, we don't want to just focus only on the 5 books of Moses. We're not Samaritans, right? We want to have excuses or have reasons to go wander around in the Tanakh a little bit, right? So verse 16, Kol amru, kol adat, Yahweh, ma hama'al hazeh asher ma'altem. It's the same word here, again, that ma'al, right? So what is this trespass? What is this betrayal that you have done, that you have made, right? What is this betrayal that you have betrayed us with, okay? Or that you've betrayed the God of Israel with? Lashuv hayom me'acharei Yahweh, to lashuv hayom, to what would be the English translation? To turn away from. How they translate it here? Make better. Yeah, they do turn away also. Me'acharei Yahweh, to turn away from away from God. B'ivnotechem lechem mizbeach le'meradchem hayom b'Yahweh. Okay, that you built today an altar to rebel yourselves today against Yahweh. Okay. Verse 17. This is again Joshua chapter 22, verse 17. Hami'at lanu et avon peor asher lo התטהרנו ממנו עד היום הזה, ויהי הנגב בעדת יהוה. Was it not enough for us, or was it not what was it not, how do you translate this in English? Sometimes it's very hard to find the right words in English. Was it not small enough, or the sin or the iniquity of Pa'or, right? What is this Ba'al Pa'or? That's referring to the whole story with Balak and Bil'am and the Midianites, right? They went to worship the Baal Pa'or, so that's what this is referring to, okay? And they sinned. The Midianite women, we were talking about that before, tempted the Israelite men, and they went and worshipped the Baal Pa'or through the temptations of the Midianite women, okay? So Asher lo hitahanu mimenu ad hayom hazeh, which we have not cleaned ourselves or purified ourselves from that until this very day. And the plague was upon the congregation of Yahweh. Okay, so basically, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, they've built an altar, right? And this is considered on their way back to the eastern side of the Jordan, or to the land east of the Jordan. They built an altar on the border, right? And this is considered a bad thing. So let's try to figure out what the bad thing is, but let's go on here first a little bit. Okay? So you have today turned back from Yahweh, and on this day, and you have rebelled today against Yahweh. Machar el kol adat Yisrael yitzof, and tomorrow, he will become furious he will become enraged at all of the congregation of Israel. In other words, by building this altar, you've turned away from Yahweh, you've rebelled against Yahweh, and now he's going to take it out on all of the children of Israel. Your rebelliousness is going to make God angry with all of us. That's what this verse is saying. Okay, verse 19. Im time'ah eretz achuzatchem ivru lechem el eretz achuzat Yahweh asher shachan sham mishkan Yahweh ve'achazu b'tochenu b'Yahweh al timradu ve'otanu al timradu bivnotchem lechem mizbech mibe'adei mizbach Yahweh Eloheinu, right? And here in this verse, we get the idea of what's really going on. Why Joshua and the Israelites are so upset at Reuven, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh for building this secondary altar, right? So is it an altar to another god? No, it's not an altar to another god. And this verse here tells us exactly what's going on. And if the land of your inheritance, or the land that you have decided to settle in, is impure, in other words, if you don't like where you've decided to live, then cross over, Ivru, right? Perhaps the same root as Ivri. That's one of the possible explanations for the word Ivri, Hebrew, right? Then cross over into the land of El Eretz Achuzat Yahweh, into the land of the inheritance, or in the oh God, how would you translate Achuzat? It's very hard to find the right English word sometimes. The possession of Yahweh, meaning if you don't like it on the eastern side of the Jordan, come over, cross the Jordan River, come over to the west into God's land, into Yahweh's land. Okay, Sheshachan Sham Mishkan Yahweh, where the dwelling place, where the tabernacle of Yahweh sits or dwells. Okay, V'he'achzu b'tochenu b'Yahweh. And settle among us, bitochenu Yahweh, and among Yahweh, and near Yahweh. In other words, if you don't like where you're living, okay, come out on the eastern side of the Jordan River, come back to the western side of the Jordan River, our original inheritance, the inheritance that Yahweh gave to us, promised to us, and gave to us, and settle with us and among Yahweh, okay? Al timradu ve'otanu al timradu b'notchem lechem mizbach mibeladei mizbach Yahweh Eloheinu, okay? But but do not rebel, and do not cause us to rebel. Do not rebel, perhaps with us. Do not cause us to rebel. By building yourselves an altar that is aside, or that is different, that is outside of the altar of Yahweh our God. Okay, and this verse here tells exactly what these 2.5 tribes did. Okay, as they were crossing back from, remember they came. The deal was Reuven, Gad, the half tribe of Manasseh. They had the right. They liked it on the east side of the Jordan River, right? And God said to them that they can settle there on the condition that they come help the Israelites, the rest of the Israelite tribes. In other words, the other 12 minus 2.5, 9.5. The other 9.5 tribes to conquer the land to the west of the Jordan. And once they've done that, then they can go back to their own land and settle there, no problem. That was the deal. Okay, they did conquer all the land, but at any rate, now they're going back, and on their way back, they built another altar. Okay, that is different from the altar that's in the tabernacle. Right? The idea is that there's supposed to be only one place to worship Yahweh, not 2 places. Right? Not as many. Your gods are as many as or you worship a god on every hill and under every shady tree, right? There's supposed to be one place to worship God, and now these 2.5 tribes, golden calves. So these are alternative worshiping places to quit, and that's in the that part of the tabernacle. And this is Lo Achan, okay, who also we saw was Ma'al. He all betrayed or trespassed against Hello Achan ben, okay, that Israel, okay, saying Achan, and we just saw this silver and the gold. He betrayed, okay, or trespassed against Yahweh, or broke faith with Yahweh, and he and his entire family were stoned to death, okay, and all of their possessions were burnt, okay, including the material that they had, the spoils of war that they had stolen, right? So didn't Achan ben Zerach, Achan son of Zerach, trespass a trespass, or betray, or make a betrayal, or betray a betrayal, b'cherem, with the cherem means that which is put aside for destruction, but in this case, it really means with the spoils of war that were set aside to be dedicated to the treasury of the tabernacle, right? Israel haya katzef. So didn't Achan, he betrayed God by taking the sanctified spoils of war. Israel haya katzef, and upon all the congregation of Israel, there was anger. In other words, one person, there was in that incident, which we saw back in Joshua chapter 7, one person, meaning Achan ben Zerach, he took the spoils of war that he wasn't supposed to, and God and Yahweh got mad at all of Israel, right? They were defeated, or they were routed when they tried to attack Ai, the second city that they attempted to conquer and ultimately did conquer after Jericho, right? There were 30, I think it was 34 or whatever it was. There were Israelites that died in that battle, and the Israelite army was routed. So, and then it was revealed that this all happened because Achan had taken the spoils of war, which were supposed to be dedicated to the tabernacle treasury. he took them for he coveted them, and he took them for himself, right? So what Joshua is saying here, actually it's not Joshua per se, but what the children of Israel are saying here is that God got mad at all of Israel over the actions of one man, okay? And that's what it says here. V'hu ish echad, and he was only a single man. He was one man. Lo gava be'avono. Okay. V'hu ish echad lo gava be'avono. That's a difficult one to translate, but I'll lo gava be'avono. He did not die in our. Did he not die in our sin or something like that? Wasn't he put to death? I don't know. I'd have to check various English translations on that one. But at any rate, the point being that what the Israelites are saying is that the sin of one man caused Yahweh to be angry at all the Israelites, and all the Israelites suffered because of that. They were routed and 30 the sanctified spoils, then how much more so? This is basically Joshua using a kal v'chomer, so maybe the oral law of the rabbis is right after all. Here we go. How much more so is God going to get mad at going on here? Okay. Let's go on a little bit. Okay. Yanu b'nei Reuven u'b'nei Gad v'chetzi shevet Menashe v'yidabru rashei alfei Yisrael. So basically, the 2.5 tribes answered the rashei alfei Yisrael, the heads of the thousands of Israel, basically the chieftains of Israel. Okay. El Elohim Yahweh, El Elohim Yahweh, hu Yudea v'Yisrael, hu yeda im b'mered v'im b'm'al b'Yahweh al toshi'enu hayom hazeh. Yahweh, the God Yahweh, El Elohim Yahweh, okay? God, oh God, Yahweh, something like that. God, oh God, Yahweh, who Yodea, he knows. Israel, who Yeda, and Israel, all of Israel know. If we've done this as rebellion, or if we have done this as a betrayal of faith, and here's the word ma'al, right? All of this is our search for the meaning of the word ma'al. Here it is again, b'ma'al. If we've done this as a betrayal or an unfaithfulness by Yahweh towards God, a betrayal towards save us on this day. So basically, the 2.5 tribes are saying, "Listen, we've not done this as an act of rebellion, okay? And if we have, if you think we rebelled against God, then let us not be saved on this day." Okay, let's go on to verse 23. לבנות לנו מזבח לשוב מאחרי יחווה, ואם לעלות עליו עולות ומנחה, ואם לעשות עליו זבחי שלמים, יחווה הוא יבקש. Okay, so by building for ourselves an altar, לשוב מאחרי יחווה, okay, so by building an altar to, if, in other words, we have not betrayed Yahweh by building ourselves an altar to turn back away from Yahweh. Okay, ve'im la'alot alav, and by wanting to bring up on it olah u'mincha, fire offerings or burnt offerings, grain offerings, ve'im la'asot alav zivchei shlamim, and peace offerings, Yahweh hu yevakesh. Okay, then if this is the case, then God will request it of us, meaning God will take it out of our hides, is basically what that means. Okay. So basically, what they're saying in this verse, what the 2.5 tribes are saying in this verse, is that yes, we built an altar, okay, but by building an altar and wanting to bring, it's a continuation of the previous verse. Basically, what they're saying, the 2.5 tribes are saying, we have not rebelled against Yahweh by building this altar and wanting to bring sacrifices on it. Okay, ve'im lo. Oops. Verse 24. Ve'im lo mida'aga. Midavar עשינו את זאת לאמור מחר יאמרו בניכם לבנינו לאמור מה לכם וליהוה אלוהי ישראל. One second here. וגבול נתן יהוה בינינו וביניכם בני ראובן ובני גד את הירדן אין לכם חלק ביהוה השביתנו ביניכם את בנינו לבלתי יורה את יהוה. So, all right, let's try to break this down a little bit, okay? ואם לא מדאגה, let me just check. ואם לא מדאגה מדבר עשינו את זאת לאמור מחר יאמרו ביניכם לבנינו לאמור מה לכם ליהוה אלוהי ישראל. Okay, so basically what they're saying is the reason we built the altar, I'm going to paraphrase here, is that we feared that because we're on the other side of the Jordan, okay, the Jordan River forms basically a border between us, the 2.5 tribes, and the other 9.5 tribes, and we feared that if we do not build an altar to Yahweh on our side of the Jordan, okay, then let me try to translate it a bit more word for word. But the reason we did it was it not for the fear or for the worry that we did this thing because perhaps tomorrow and in the future your children will say to our children, your sons will say to our sons, meaning your sons, the sons of the 9.5 tribes to the west of the Jordan, will say to our sons, the sons of the tribes, the 2.5 tribes on the east of the Jordan, lemor, and they will say what? So the descendants of the 9.5, the descendants of those living to the west of the Jordan will say to the descendants of those living east of the Jordan, Ma lechem Yahweh Elohei Yisrael. What is there between you and Yahweh, the God of Israel? In other words, the ones who are living in God's inheritance, original inheritance, the true land of Israel, to the west of the Jordan are going to come back to our children and they're going to say, what connection do you have to Yahweh, the God of Israel, right? You have no connection, right? You're on the other side of the Jordan. The Jordan forms a border. The Jordan River forms a border between us, the 2.5 tribes, or I'm sorry, this is from what the 9.5 tribes to the west of the Jordan would say. The border the Jordan River forms a border between you, the 2.5 tribes to the east of the Jordan, with us, the 9.5 tribes to the west of the Jordan. So you're on the other side of that border. You're outside of the land of Israel. Okay, you're not really part of us. You have no connection to us. You have no connection, especially to Yahweh. And therefore, that's the reason we built the altar. We're afraid that if we don't build our own altar, then you're going to say we have no connection whatsoever. You're eventually, your descendants are going to say to our descendants, you, the 2.5 tribes east of the Jordan, have no connection to Yahweh, the God of Israel. Okay, verse 25. And Yahweh placed a border between us and between you. Okay. Bnei Ruvain u'bnei Gad et Yarden en lachem chelek v'Yahweh. So this is again what the 9.5 tribes to the west of the Jordan their descendants would one day say to the descendants of the 2.5 tribes east of the Jordan. Yahweh placed the border between us and between you, Bnei Ruvain and Bnei Gad, the children of Reuben, or the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad. Okay, they didn't mention the half tribe of Manasseh, but it's understood. Et Yarden, this border is the Jordan River. En lachem chelek b'Yahweh. You have no part in Yahweh. You have no connection to Yahweh. V'hishbitanu b'nechem et banenu levilti yore et Yahweh. Okay, Yiro et Yahweh. And hishbitu benechem et benenu, then your descendants will cause us to stop fearing Yahweh, or perhaps your descendants will accuse us of having stopped fearing Yahweh. Maybe a better way to translate it, right? So you understand what's going on here. It's a very interesting, fascinating story, right? So just to sum it up in my own words, okay, to summarize it. So the children, the 2.5 tribes, Reuven, Gad, the half tribe of Manasseh, they, after Sihon and Og, the Amorite kings were defeated, they requested to take that land and settle on the east of the Jordan. They liked it there. Moshe asked Yahweh, and Yahweh came back and he said, fine, the 2.5 tribes, Reuven, Gad, the half of the tribe of Manasseh can settle on the east of the Jordan. on one condition. First, they help all of the rest of the tribes, and other 9.5 tribes, to conquer all the land west of the Jordan, right? The actual land that was given to the children of Israel. And once they've done that, then they can go back and settle on the east of the Jordan. So they are now going back. They've helped Israel conquer. They've helped the other 9.5 tribes conquer the land west of the Jordan, although they certainly didn't finish the job. But now they're going back to settle in the land that they wanted to settle in, east of the Jordan. As they're going back, they decide to build an altar. Okay. One second. גלילות ירדן אשר בארץ כנען ויבנו בני ראובן ובני גד וחצי שבט מנשה שם מזבח על הירדן מזבח גדול למראה ישמעו בני ישראל אמורנו בנו בני ראובן ובני גד וחצי שבט מנשה את המזבח אל מול ארץ כנען אל גלילות ירדן. So this is where they built it, okay? אל מול ארץ כנען אל גלילות ירדן. So they built it across, facing the land of Canaan, okay, meaning, implying on the eastern side of the Jordan River, El Glilot Yarden, and some place called Glilot Yarden, which I'm not sure where it is, but based on its name, it's near the Yarden, right? It's Glilot Yarden. Okay, Glilot might be translated as the region, like the Galil, the Galilee, just means the region. So in the region of the Yarden, okay, El Ever Bnei Israel, okay, on the other side of the children of Israel, right? So they built this altar right near the Jordan River, okay, or in the region of the Jordan River on the east of the river, back in their land, okay? Then Vishlechu bnei Israel el bnei Ruvain, and then the children of Israel go to those 2.5 tribes and said, "What are you doing? You've built an altar to Yahweh on the eastern side of the Jordan. You know you're not supposed to do that. There's only one altar, and that's the altar that is in the tabernacle complex that, of course, we just finished reading all about in the second half of the book of Exodus, right? So you've done a bad thing, okay? You've betrayed Yahweh by doing such a thing, okay? And not only that, but you know that Achan, who we read about in Joshua chapter 7, Achan betrayed Yahweh. He was unfaithful to Yahweh. He took spoils of war that were supposed to be dedicated to the tabernacle treasury. He took them for himself. And because of that, God got mad at all of the children of Israel when they went to conquer the city of Ai, the first city they conquered after Jericho, the second city they conquered overall, right? And they were routed by the Amorite armies, Canaanite army, I think it was the Amorites, and 35 or 30 something Israelites died. So that shows that if one man committed a betrayal or betrayed Yahweh, and this caused Yahweh to get mad at all of the children of Israel, then how much more so that those who know Rabbinical Judaism will laugh out of that one, right? That Kal v'chomer, how much more so that Yahweh is going to get mad at all of the children of Israel if 2.5 whole tribes commit a sin. What sin? By building a second altar to Yahweh on the east of the Jordan, when there's only supposed to be a single altar, one God, one altar, one place to bring the sacrifices. That's one of the basic tenets of the Torah, or of the sacrificial system, right? Okay, and so they accused Reuven of doing this horrible thing, right? Of betraying Yahweh, and then not Reuven, God, Reuven, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and then God, Reuven, the half tribe of Manasseh they retort back, they snap back at the rest of Israel, and they said, no, we have a very good reason for doing this, okay? We're on the other side of the Jordan. We're east of the Jordan, okay? The Jordan River forms a definite border between us and the other 9.5 tribes that are living in the actual land of Israel. And someday your descendants, the descendants of the 9.5 tribes living actually in the land of Israel, are going to come to our descendants and going to say, you're not part of us. You have no part. You have no connection to Yahweh, our God, right? And therefore, therefore we feel we need to have another altar on the eastern side of the Jordan in order to show, or in order to keep and prove our connection to Yahweh. That was the retort of the 2.5 tribes. Okay. Okay. Right. So that we're up to here, verse 26. ונאמר, נעשה נא לנו לבנות את המזבח, לא לעלות ולא לזבח, כי עד הוא בינינו וביניכם ובין תורתנו אחרינו לעבוד את עבודת יהוה לפניו, בעולותינו ובזבחנו ובשלמנו, ולא יאמרו ביניכם מחר לבנינו, אין לכם חלק ביהוה. All right, let's try to pick this one apart, okay? Verse 26, V'nomer, so this is the 2.5 tribes they're continuing to speak here, right? They're giving their teruts, they're giving their reasoning, the excuse for building this altar, okay? ונאמר, נעשה נא לנו לבנות את המזבח, לא לעולה ולא לזבח. So we said, let us build this altar, but not for burnt offerings and not for other sacrifices, okay? כי עד הוא בינינו וביניכם ובין דורותינו אחרינו לעבוד את עבודת יהוה לפניו בעולותינו ובזבחנו ובשלמנו, ולא יאמרו ביניכם מחר לבנינו, אין לכם חלק ביהוה. So if I'm understanding this correctly, so basically what the 2.5 tribes are now saying is, yes, we built this altar to Yahweh, but we have no intention, I believe we're going to check this, okay, but we have no intention of bringing sacrifices on this altar, okay? But it's really just meant to be a witness. It's meant to be a sign or a witnessing, right? A testimony. Benenu benechem ben dorotenu acharenu, for the coming generations between your children and our children. Again, these are the 2.5 tribes on the east of the Jordan River, lifanav, that we, I guess you could translate this, have the right to worship or to partake in the sacrificial worship or the service of Yahweh lefanav, before him, and by bringing burnt offerings and other sacrifices and peace offerings, okay, so that your children should not say in future times to our children, you have no part in Yahweh, you have no connection to Yahweh. So if I'm understanding this correctly, basically what the 2.5 tribes are saying is, yes, we built this altar, but we have no intention of bringing sacrifices on this altar. It's just meant to be a symbol. It's meant to be a witnessing, a testimony between you, the 9.5 tribes on the west of the Jordan, between us, the 2.5 tribes on the east of the Jordan, that we have the right, okay, that we have a part in Yahweh, and we have a right to bring sacrifices to Yahweh. And if I'm understanding this correctly, and we will check it, first take it with a grain of salt until we've checked it thoroughly, that what they're saying is this is a symbol that shows that we have the right to bring, that we have a part in Yahweh, and we have the right to bring sacrifices at the altar of the tabernacle. Okay, we have no intention of actually bringing sacrifices on this secondary altar that we've built east of the Jordan. It's just meant to be a symbol to show that we have the right to sacrifice on the actual altar that's in the tabernacle. Okay, let's go on and see if that is correct. I believe that's correct. ואל דורתנו מחר ואמרנו ראו את תבנית מזבח יהוה אשר עשו אבותינו לא לעולה ולא לזבח כי עד הוא בינינו וביניכם. And that kind of solidifies it, okay? And ונאמר, and we shall say, or we said, v'haya, or we're saying, v'haya ki yomru elenu ve'el dorotenu machar, if you should say to us and to our descendants, to our generations literally, in the future, literally, tomorrow, v'amanu, okay, if you should say in the future, basically, if you should claim in the future to us, the 2.5 tribes on the east of the Jordan, you have no part in Yahweh, you have no connection to us, okay? V'amanu, then we're going to say, ru'u et tavnit mizbach Yahweh, look at this reproduction of tavnit, literally means the structure or the shape or the they translate it here, the replica, perfect translation, this replica of the mizbach Yahweh, of the altar of Yahweh, asher asu avotenu, which our fathers made, lo la'olah velo lezevach, not for bringing burnt offerings and not for bringing other sacrifices, ki edu benenu u benechem, but just as a testimony, as a witness between your between us and you. Us meaning the 2.5 tribes east of the Jordan, and you meaning the 9.5 tribes west of the Jordan. Okay? Chalila lanu mimenu limrod b'Yahweh ולשוב היום מאחרי יהוה לבנות מזבח לעולה ולמנחה לזבח מלבד מזבח יהוה אלוהינו אשר לפני משכנו. God forbid, חלילה לנו, right? Far be it from us is how they translate it usually. Okay, far be it from us. God forbid that we should rebel against Yahweh and return from before Him, or go away from Him, or abandon Him, Yahweh, by building an altar for burnt offerings and grain offerings and other sacrifices in the altar of Yahweh Eloheinu, aside from the altar of Yahweh our God, Asher Lifnei Mishkano, which is in front of his dwelling place, his tabernacle, his tent of meeting. Okay, so that's the response of the tribe of the 2.5 tribes, Reuven, Gad, and the half tribe of Menashe. Okay, they said, yes, we've built this altar, but we're building a replica of the actual altar. We had no intention of bringing sacrifices on this altar. We're just doing it as a symbol so that your descendants should not say to our descendants, you have no part in the children of Israel. You have no part in Yahweh, the God of Israel. Okay? Verse 30, Vishma minchas hakohen ונשיאי העדה וראשי אלפי ישראל אשר איתו את הדברים אשר דיברו בני ראובן ובני גד בני מנשה וייטב ביניכם. So the Israelites that had come as a delegation heard the words of the 2.5 tribes, v'yitav be'enechem, and this was good in their eyes. In other words, they accepted their explanation. Okay, verse 31. Yomer Pinchas ben Elazar haKohen, and Pinchas, the son of Elazar the Kohen. Okay, so Pinchas the son of Elazar, of course. So the grandson of Aharon. Okay. Elazar is the third child of Aharon. The first two died when they brought the unsanctioned incense to the incense altar. Yomer Pinchas ben Elazar Kohen, and Pinchas, the son of Elazar the Kohen, El bnei Reuven ve'el bnei Gad ve'el bnei Menashe, and they said to basically the 2.5 tribes, Hayom yadanu ki b'tochenu Yahweh asher lo ma'altem beYahweh hama'al hazeh az Itzatem et bnei Israel miyad Yahweh. Okay, we know ki b'tochenu Yahweh. We know that Yahweh is among us. Asher lo ma'altem beYahweh hama'al hazeh, that, and because you did not betray Yahweh in this way. Okay, you did not make a betrayal. You did not make a betrayal of Yahweh. Okay, you did not betray this betrayal of Yahweh. More literally, did not make this betrayal against Yahweh. As itzatem et bnei Israel miyad Yahweh, and by doing so, you have actually saved, or you've actually let's see how they translate here, delivered the children of Israel miyad Yahweh. You've saved, or you've delivered the children of Israel from the hand of Yahweh. In other words, now we understand, and what you've done is actually a good thing. Okay, and now we understand, and we know that what you're actually doing is a good thing, and and by doing so, we now know that God is not going to bring a plague among the children of Israel. He's going to he's not going to see this as a betrayal. Okay. Shab Pinchas ben Elazar Kohen v'nisi'im me'et bnei Reuven me'et bnei Gad me'eretz Gil'ad. And so Pinchas, the son of Elazar the Kohen, and the heads of Israel, the heads of the tribes, they went back from basically the 2.5 tribes, El Eretz Canaan, to the land of the Canaan, El Bnei Israel v'yashivu otam davar. So basically, they went back west of the Jordan, and they brought back word from the 2.5 tribes east of the Jordan. And this explanation, this word was good in the eyes of the children of Israel. V'yivarachu Elohim b'nei Israel, and they blessed. One second. V'yivarachu Elohim b'nei Israel v'lo amru la'alot alehem l'tzava לשחט את הארץ אשר בני ראובן בני גד יושבים בה. Okay, one second. ויטב הדבר בעיני בני ישראל ויברכו אלוהים בני ישראל I'm not parsing that in my head, but it doesn't matter. I guess the children of Israel blessed God, velo amru, and they decided not to go up against them, meaning against the 2.5 tribes. Remember, originally they were going to go destroy those 2.5 tribes. The Tzava, and in an army, l'shachet et haaretz, to destroy the land, meaning the land east of the Jordan, asher b'nei Ruvain b'nei Gad yoshvim ba, in which the children of Ruvain and the children of Gad, and also the half tribe Manasseh, were dwelling in it. In other words, once the rest of the children of Israel heard the explanation why the 2.5 tribes had built another altar, just as a replica, as a show altar, not to bring sacrifices on, but just as a show altar east of the Jordan. So the rest of the children of Israel relented in their idea to go attack the 2.5 tribes and destroy them. יקראו בני ראובן ובני גד למזבח כי עד הוא בנותינו כי יהוה האלוהים. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad called, I'm not sure, maybe called people over to the altar or something like that. 1 second. You could God, mizbeach ki ed hu benirtenu ki Yahweh Elohim. Anyway, they used, I guess it's saying basically a little uncertainty in parsing the sentence exactly, but the basic idea is that they use this altar as a witness between, or that Yahweh is the God, that Yahweh is God. Okay, I'd like to get an English translation on that one. Actually, it was Joshua 22:34. Joshua 22:34. The Reubenites and the Gadites gave the altar this name. Okay, a witness between us. Okay, that makes more sense. So that's the actual name. So they gave this altar a name. Whoops, where'd we go? It's a long name, so that's why it confused my mind. So this is the name they gave it to. Okay, ki ed hu benotenu ki Yahweh ha'Elohim. So the name of the altar was God is a witness. I'm sorry, that this is a witness between who benotenu. This is a witness between us, meaning us, the 2.5 tribes, and you, the 9.5 tribes west of the Jordan. Ki Yahweh ha'Elohim, that Yahweh is God. Okay, that's it. That's the whole story in Joshua 22. Okay, we saw a number of times this use of the word ma'al. It also harkened back to Joshua 7. Okay, Joshua 7, the story of Achan and his family who took the sanctified spoils that were supposed to be put in the temple treasury, took them for themselves. They also trespassed a trespass, ma'al, right? They also trespassed a trespass, betrayed a betrayal, okay, made a betrayal against Yahweh. That brings us back to Leviticus chapter 5, verse 15. And now we have a much, much, much better perspective on the meaning of this word, tim'ol ma'al. And it means basically betray Yahweh, okay? Or be unfaithful to Yahweh. What you just said shows that the daily liturgy of prayers cannot, do not, and should not replace the sacrifices, especially outside of Israel. I'm not sure how it shows that, to be honest, because it's basically saying that altar is not to be sacrificed on. That secondary altar is not to be sacrificed on. Only the main altar is to be sacrificed on. And that's just a symbol, a replica to show the connection to that, the connection of the 2.5 tribes east of the Jordan to that main altar that is by the tabernacle. So maybe I'm missing your point, Ariella or Ben. I'm not sure which Casey that is. But I guess Ariella is Aleph and Ben is Bet. So Casey Aleph or Casey Bet. If you want to explain yourself, then I'll be happy. But I think I'm not getting exactly what you're trying to say. Okay, so that is that. And now we're back in Leviticus 15. And let's go on. I want to take a break just for a second here. I'm not going to put on any music or anything. I just want to get a little bit more water, and maybe I'll get the plug. You know what? I'll put on music for a minute because we've been going for about an hour and a half, and my voice is tired. And in our own parsha, well, we haven't even gotten to our parsha, but that's okay. We've only gotten 2 verses into the paragraph that's before our parsha. But you know what? It's all good. We're here to study Tanakh. We don't have to feel that we need to accomplish something. Everything we learn is an accomplishment. Okay, so let me put on a little bit of music for 5 minutes or so. Let me get the plug to plug in so I don't have to do it later, and we'll continue in about 5 minutes. Okay.
El alcázar cantando con un puño de arena.
Darn it. Okay, now there should be sound. So everything I said was not heard. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I sometimes forget to unmute when I come back from break. So let's continue again. Oh, I'll just continue where we are. Okay. So if you do anything against the sanctified, the sancta of the tabernacle, then you have to bring this guilt offering. Okay, you bring a guilt offering, and what is the guilt offering? The guilt offering is an ayil tamim, okay, an unblemished ayil. What is an ayil? We're going to go to our list, which we put together mostly last year, of animal terms. We see here ayil. An ayil is a ram. And in case you don't know what a ram is, and I certainly am no expert on English terms for animals either, then we've made this little list over here. Okay, so it's a male sheep of any age. Okay, sometimes it specifically says a young sheep, right? But in this case, it's basically a male sheep. That's what a ram is. Okay, so you bring a ram. By the way, can you hear now, Phil? You can hear? Sound check. 1, 2, 3. Sound check. Anybody? All right. I'll assume you can hear because I have the mute off. All right. So you bring a male ram. Okay. Minutes on. Okay. From the flock. Okay. And the flock means sheep or goats, but in this case we said it's a ram, so it's very specifically a sheep. Okay. As opposed to, let's say, an ayil, which would be a goat. Okay. Minutes בערכך כסף שקלים בשקל הקודש לאשם. Okay, so this is verse 15, and I want to get a translation on that. Okay, so Robert Alter says, or its equivalent in silver shekels according to the sanctuary shekel as a guilt offering. Okay, which is not 100% clear from the language. And actually, Everett Fox translates it differently. Okay, so a ram, holy sound from the flock, by your assessment in silver shekels, by the holy shrine shekel as an asham, a guilt offering. Okay, so what the heck does that mean, right? It's certainly not clear from the language in the Hebrew. In fact, Everett Fox's translation is more word for word translation of the Hebrew. But let's see if we can try to get a little bit of commentary. Okay. So Robert Alter says the literal sense of the Hebrew is, in your estimation, the possessive pronominal component of this expression, your, reflects the fact that it is, as Baruch Levine, whoever that is, at least it's not Rachel Levine, as Rachel Levine, no, oh God, rightly observes, a bound expression, a colloquial you becoming fixed as part of an idiom that means monetary equivalences. Okay, so, all right, so he gives the literal, okay? בערכך כסף שקלים בשקל הקודש של האשם. So literally what it means, okay, so let's go back here. You shall bring your guilt offering, okay, to Yahweh, an ayil tamim, okay, an unblemished ram, which we saw was a male sheep, okay, minatzon, from among your flock, among the flock, okay, be'erkecha, in your estimation, okay, of gold shekels, or silver shekels, or really what it means is shekels of silver, because shekel is a weight, it's a specific weight. So your estimation of shekels of silver, the shekel HaKodesh, according to the holy, or the sanctuary shekel, as a guilt offering. Okay, be'erkecha kesef. So literally what it means is according to your estimation in shekels of silver. Okay. But then Robert Alter is telling us that he believes, his interpretation, okay, is the possessive pronominal component of this expression, yours. So it says here, be'erkecha, according to your estimation. So then he quotes some dude. It's what's called a bound expression. Okay, a colloquial U becoming fixed as a part of an idiom that means monetary equivalences. So he says that what it literally says here is, in your estimation of silver shekels or shekels of silver, okay, according to the sanctuary shekel. So basically, he says that this is basically an idiom. An idiom, in your estimation, means or the equivalent. Okay, that's Robert Alter's explanation. And Everett Fox does not seem to go by that. He just kind of translates it more literally, by your assessment in silver shekels, by the holy shrine shekel as an asham, which is really unclear what it means. So Robert Alter, as usual, his explanation is very clear. So we could maybe check Ibn Ezra on this one. So this is Leviticus 5:15. Leviticus 5:15. One second here. So where is that? Oh, that's already 16. So he's not talking about it. He's talking about a ma'al. Oh, that's interesting. Cover the offender. Okay. Tim'ol ma'al is related to the word ma'il, garment. One second here. Huh, okay. דבר שנתכסה עליו מגזרת מעיל והטעם כי חטאת הוא בקדשי השם. One second. יביא עיל שהוא שווה כסף שקלים מיעוט רבים שניים. Okay, so all right, so we'll just go with the English here. Okay, I'm not going to pick apart the Hebrew there. It's better explained here. So let's just read what the Ibn Ezra says here in the English translation with some explanations. The reference is to something which is it's too complicated. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. Any rate, on the actual thing we wanted to check, this word be'erkecha, Ibn Ezra doesn't have anything to say. Okay, let's see what we can do. Let's check our new source here. No, let's check Milgram. Okay, so we said that Jacob Milgram is kind of an expert on the book of Leviticus. Let's see if we can get down to Leviticus 5 somehow and see what he has to say about this. It's a huge book, so it might take a while to actually find the place. All right. Let's see where we are. So it's 6. Okay, so we got pretty close. Six. We really got to go up a lot more, right? One second here. 6. Still in 6. Oh my God. All right, let me bring it up a lot. Let's see here. Where are we? 5:14 to 26. Perfect. So we are in 5:15. Too long as we can. Sacrifice against oaths. Yasham of the Misorah. One second here. unwitting sin in the ancient Near East. Maybe we should go back to the beginning of where it says 5 additional cases of sanctity desecration. My lordy, he really goes into it in complicated, very, very extensive detail. Amazing, amazing stuff. Let's go back just a bit. Okay. Wow. Very, very extensive. 5:1 to 13. And here it starts, 5:14 to, okay. So sacrilege against sancta. So this is his translation. Okay. So the Lord spoke to Moses saying, when a person commits a sacrilege by being inadvertently remiss with any of the Lord's sancta, he shall bring as his penalty to the Lord a ram without blemish from the flock, convertible, not a convertible like a car without a roof, but convertible into payment in silver by sanctuary weight as a reparation offering. So that's how he translates that. So basically, he's agreeing with Robert Alter and with many commentators. That means or the equivalent, or potentially the equivalent in silver shekels. Okay, and he shall make restitution for it. Blah blah blah. Okay, so let's get a little bit of commentary. Okay, so commits a sacrilege, tim ol ma'al, Shabbat shalom, Ithan Avior. All right, so Milgram is saying here, commits a sacrilege. So that's again tim ol ma'al, right? So that's in verse 15. We're talking about this over here. Is the legal term for the wrong that is redressed by the asham offering. Okay, so ma'al is the sin, is the wrongdoing, and then the restitution for the ma'al is the asham. Okay. It is never defined in the Bible. Unfortunately, comparative philology is useless. Right. So now he's going to. Okay. So now he's going to point to the Ibn Ezra, which we just read a second ago. What I thought was a kind of silly explanation, but he's going to basically. So Milgram is going to, I think, say it's a silly explanation. Ibn Ezra on this verse suggests that because the nouns me'il and beged are synonymous for cloak, covering in their respective verbs may be denominatives, originally meaning cover one's deed or act deceitfully. As suggestive as this etymology is, it cannot be corroborated and in particular cannot shed light on the restricted technical use of ma'al in the cultic laws. So he's basically shooting down the Ibn Ezra. Okay, we didn't explore what the Ibn Ezra says, but he's explaining it here. We did look at it, but then I decided not to go into it. The answer will have to be sought in the ma'al contexts, which we looked at some of them. From the synonymous use of Hillel, desecrate, 1912, the use of ma'al in the rabbinic texts and similar contexts in ancient Near East documents, it will be shown that the noun ma'al means sacrilege. The verb ma'al means ma'al, and the verb ma'al means commit sacrilege. And all cases of ma'al fall into two major categories: sacrilege against sancta and sacrilege involving oaths. Okay. These two categories are subsumed under the prescription for the asham. Verses 14 through 19 deal with the sacrilege against sancta, and verses 20 through 26 with sacrilege involving oaths. Details are provided in the comment below. All right, we could be here for hours. The Lord sancta kodshe Yahweh, I'll just read this. So here we're talking about, okay, so if you have committed some kind of trespass, right? Or if you committed some kind of sacrilege against the sacred things, okay? So then here it says, Mikadshe Yahweh, from the holy things or from the sanctified things of Yahweh, right? Which now Milgram is going to say the word sancta, that's those words. The term is ambiguous. Does it denote every object dedicated to the Lord, whether Kodesh Kadoshim, most sacred, or Kodesh sacred, and whether inside the sacred precincts or outside? First, an analysis of the two terms sacred and most sacred is indicated. Okay, so we have had certain things that are called kodesh kodeshim. For instance, if I'm not mistaken, the incense altar, when we were learning about the construction of the tabernacle, is called kodesh kodeshim, holy of holies. Okay, so the exact term in P is coming from the documentary hypothesis, which of course most people here, including myself, I think would reject, but nonetheless, it's important to know what it is. So this is the priestly source. Okay, you guys all probably know what it is. I'm not going to go. I've explained it a bunch of times before. But in the sacrificial system, it embraces all sacrifices, but the shlamim, well-being offering, or often called the peace offering. These are the olah, that's the fire offering, the mincha, the grain offering, the hatat, the sin, or the often translated as the purification from sin offering, and the asham, the guilt offering, which we're learning about here. Okay. So in other words, what he's saying is that whenever you see Kodesh Kodeshim with reference to the sacrifices, okay, that it's talking about every sacrifice, every type of sacrifice except the shlamim, except the peace or well-being offering, and then it's these other types of offerings are mentioned here. They are alike as regards their place of slaughter, consumers, and manner and place of consumption, differing with the shlamim in all of these respects, okay. This precision concerning the most sacred sacrifices is also found in sources apart, but dependent on P, such as H. That's the holiness code. We're not going to get into that. And then a bunch of other references. Okay. We'll go on a little bit more here. This is all very technical. So maybe I don't want to get into too much. It's very interesting to me, but I don't know if it's going to be interesting to everyone listening here, but we'll get into it a little bit. So Snaith, 1973, contends that Kodesh Kodoshim is limited to the most holy gift given to the priest, with the consequences that the olah being entirely consumed on the altar would be excluded from this designation. But he loses sight of the partitive mem in Mikodesh HaKodeshim, from the most sacred offerings, Numbers 18:9, implying that there are other offerings of this type. Okay, this is all very technical. It's fascinating to me, but maybe a bit too technical for what we want to accomplish now. Okay. How much does he go on here? This is fascinating stuff. I'm going to read a little bit more. Okay. For most sacred objects other than sacrifices, a greater plasticity is evident, but their range is confined to the tabernacle sancta. The phrase Kodesh Kodeshim here generally refers to the entire tabernacle complex, e.g. Exodus 30:29, blah, 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 but it also may designate the cultic furniture, e.g. Numbers 4:4, or the tabernacle aditum. I don't even know what that means. Let's look it up. Not showing up. Okay. This variation, however, is not arbitrary. It should be noted that the two latter restricted meanings are employed for one purpose to contrast the gradations within the most sacred, namely the aditum, with the rest of the sanctuary. Okay, now I have to find out what aditum means. The innermost sanctuary of an ancient Greek temple. So basically, okay, the inner part, okay, meaning where the Ark of the Covenant is, okay, with the rest of the sanctuary, or the cultic, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm going to have to skip. I think it's just too technical. It's really, really fascinating stuff to me, but it's too technical. I'll just have to read it on my own, I guess. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on then. Okay. So so we've established then, the main thing we've established here is that that Robert Alter and Jacob Milgram both say that this means or the equivalent or being transferable into shekels of silver, okay, or shekel weights of silver. Remember, shekel in the Tanakh means a weight. It's not a monetary. It's not a monetary amount. You can have a shekel of silver. You can have a shekel of gold. You can have a shekel of bronze. It's a weight. Okay, but shekel HaKodesh Lasham, and specifically the sanctuary shekel, right, which is a specific, which was basically the surrounding nations also had a weight called the shekel, but apparently the Israelite shekel was set at a specific amount, which may have been equivalent to one of the amounts of the surrounding nation or one of the weights of the surrounding nation. we'd have to go into that separately. Okay, ואת אשר חטא מן הקודש ישלם ואת חמישיתו יוסף עליו ונתן אותו לכהן, והכהן יכפר עליו באל האשם ונסלח לו. So if he חטא בשחרה מקדשי יהוה, so if someone sinned against the sancta of Yahweh by accident, okay, then he brings a guilt offering, which we said is an unblemished ram, and we said a ram is a male sheep, very specifically, okay. ואת אשר חטא מן הקודש, and he who has, oh, it's Levi, okay, bring him over here. Hey, boo-boo. Hey, this is the little cat. This is the boo-boo. Okay, maybe give him a treat or two. Okay, he can stand now for a while. Okay, he's been out enough. So whoever has sinned from among the sancta, okay. So I think this is in contrast to chata b'shchara. This is sinned unintentionally, and perhaps this is sinned intentionally. I don't know. We're gonna have to look into it. Okay, yishalem et chamishito yosef alav. So you're going to alav natan oto lekohen. So now you're going to let's get commentary on this. It's complicated. Basically, you're going to add a fifth. Okay. All right. Shabbat shalom. Hallelu et stereo. I've never understood that username, but okay. Let's get a little commentary on this one. So this is all very, very complex, complicated stuff, but we're going to dig into it. Okay, Leviticus 5, chapter 5, verse 16. So we'll get our Robert Alter. He's always good for, straightening things out in a very succinct kind of way. So he says here, whoa. And that concerning which he is offended from the sanctum, he shall pay, and a fifth part he shall add to it and give to the priest, and the priest shall atone for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and shall be given for him. So what the heck is that talking about? Let's look at his commentary in verse 16. Okay, a characteristic case of this law envisages is when someone eats food not realizing it has been consecrated for cultic use. He would thus pay the monetary cost of the food consumed plus a fine of 20%. Okay. So, right. I'm not really sure I'm getting that one. So we have here, so if you chata b'shchara, if you sin against the holy things, the sancta by accident, then you just bring a guilt offering, which is an ayl tamim, okay, an unblemished ram, or the equivalent in silver, okay, in shekels of silver. Okay, ve'et asher chata min hakodesh yishalem. Okay, ve'et asher chata min hakodesh. So I guess he's saying in addition, ve'et chamishato yosef alav v'natan oto lekohen v'kan yachaper alav be'el hasham v'nislach lo. Okay, so I guess what it's saying, if I'm understanding it correctly, is in addition to bringing this ayl tamim, this unblemished ram, you also have to pay back a fifth of whatever you took by mistake, right? So maybe the example, okay, and then, right, okay. So here's the example again that Robert Alter brings. So you've eaten sanctified food, right? So let's say food that's put aside for the tithes, which is supposed to be brought to the Kohanim. That is now sanctified. Okay, you're not supposed to. A lay person is not supposed to eat it. So let's say you didn't know that food was put aside for the Kohanim, and you eat $10 worth of food. Then you're supposed to. Now you've eaten holy things. You've eaten sancta. You've eaten the food that is holy to Yahweh, because it's set aside as a tithe for the Kohanim. So now you're supposed to bring a guilt offering because of that, because it was done b'shchara. It was done by accident, okay? But in addition to it, now you have to pay back the amount of the food. You back $12. You add a fifth to the value. So 1/5 of 10 is 2. 10 plus 2 is 12. Okay, and Yosef alav, you're going to add on top of it, Natanatul Kohen, and then you give that amount to the Kohen. And then the Kohen is going to atone for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and he will be forgiven. Okay, it will be forgiven for him. Okay, so I think that's what it's saying, that if you somehow or another violate the sancta of you do something wrong with that which is dedicated to the temple, okay, then there are two things. You have to bring the guilt offering, which is an unblemished male sheep, a ram, and on top of it, you have to pay back whatever you took and add another fifth on top of it. I assume that is more or less what it's saying. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Stereo. All right. So, and let's read this Robert Alter comment again. Okay. So, characteristic case that this law envisages is when someone eats food not realizing it has been sanctified for cultic use. He would thus pay the monetary cost of the food consumed plus a fine of 20%. All right. Should we get a little bit more commentary on that one? I guess we can go back to Milgram. Again, very long, very technical, but I mean, absolutely fascinating to me. So maybe we'll read a little bit more in Milgram just for my own edification or for my own pleasure, shall we say. For most sacred objects, other than sacrifices, so we said in the case of sacrifices, Milgram is saying that that there are two types of sacrifices. There's the Kodesh and there's the Kodesh Kodeshim. And the Kodesh Kodeshim are every sacrifice except for the Shlamim, the peace offerings. That's just Kodesh. All the other types of the sacrifices, meaning the Olah, the Mincha, the Chatat, and the Asham, these are all Kodesh Kodeshim. These are all Holy of Holies. These are all called Holy of Holies, and he brings chapter and verse where it says so. Okay, and that basically covers all of the types of sacrifices. There actually is one more. There's the Nidava, but these are the main types: Shlamim, Olah, Shlamim, well-being offering, Olah, which is a burnt offering, fully burnt offering. We usually translate it as, or a Holocaust offering. That's where they actually get the word Holocaust in the context of the Shoah, of the Nazi destruction of the Jews, from what the burnt offering was often translated as into English as a Holocaust offering, meaning wholly burnt, like holistic, Holocaust, holo, like holistic, holy, whole. The word whole comes from the word holo, and cost, meaning burnt, like caustic, right? Means something that will burn your skin, okay? Burn you. Okay, chatat is usually translated as a sin offering, but we saw last year and we've seen again this year that a better translation would be a purification offering or a purification from sin offering, and asham is a guilt offering. And we saw that Milgram said that the asham offering is very specifically the restitution for what is called a ma'al, a betrayal, okay? So it's all very technical. Okay, because I made the channel for children to learn Hebrew and filled it with Torah-based songs to help them memorize. Oh, nice. Okay. It's a name for my grandson, like a radio station, the Aleph Tov for the Aleph. Oh, okay, cool. Aleph Tov stereo. Interesting. Okay, now it makes more sense. Thank you for filling me in on that. All righty. Yeah, so let's go a little bit on in Milgram. Okay, so we were here. For most sacred objects other than sacrifices, maybe I should make this a little bit larger so it's easier to see. A greater plasticity is evident, but their range is confined to tabernacle sancta. No, it's went off center and it's messing up my sense of aesthetics. The phrase Kodesh Kadoshim here generally refers to the entire tabernacle complex. We read this already, but we'll read it again. But it also may designate the cultic furniture. And he brings chapter and verse. This variation, however, is not arbitrary. It should be noted that the two latter restricted meanings are employed for one purpose, to contrast the gradations within the most sacred, namely the aditum, and we saw this means the inner sanctum, where behind the curtain, behind the parochet, that's what separates the Kodesh from the Kodesh Kedoshim, okay? Behind the curtain, behind the parochet is where we have the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark cover, the cherubim, etc., with the rest of the sanctuary, okay? Or the cultic furniture with the planks and curtains of the tabernacle, right? So we saw, for instance, that the incense altar is called Kodesh Kodeshim, Okay, outside of the sphere of P, and again, this is a reference to the priestly source, so he's a believer in the documentary hypothesis, of which I am not, of course. A similar phenomenon is observable. The phrase Kodesh Kodeshim will also indicate gradations in holiness, but in a metaphoric rather than a strict legal sense. For example, the priests Aaron and his sons are called Kodesh Kodoshim, 1 Chronicles 23:13, presumably to set them apart from the Levites, for whom the chronicler, but never peace, blah, 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 calls Kodesh. Similarly, Ezekiel uses Kodesh Kodeshim to distinguish the land assigned to the priests. Okay, from the Levites' land called Kodesh. The usage again is metaphoric and not legal because even in Ezekiel's scheme, the Levites' land is indistinguishable in sanctity from the priests. Both are herem, which may not be sold or exchanged. And that's in Leviticus 27:28. We'll get to that eventually. The reverse, however, does not hold true. The most sacred are not always designated Kodesh Kodoshim. On occasion, people resort to the general term Kodesh, e.g. the incense, the altar, or its plural Kodoshim. By the same token, the anointment oil called sacred must also rate as most sacred, not only because incense exhibits the same terminological fluidity, but for two additional reasons. Because anointment confers a most sacred status, the oil itself must be of similar status, and by definition, the oil is holier than the most sacred incense because its manufacture and its use are both prohibited. Okay. Thus, the term Kodesh can indicate not only less sacred sacrifices and objects, e.g. the Shlamim, the tabernacle court, but the most sacred sancta as well. The generic use of Kodesh is especially characteristic of the sources other than P. Okay. This is very, very technical. So basically, right, and he's really doing something that's important here, which if we had about another 20,000 hours, we could get into it in detail. My name is Desiree, so all here know who I am. Hello, I love studying with you all here. Welcome, Desiree. So nice to have you, really. You've been here a number of times, and it's nice to know a little bit what your real name is and a little bit more about you. We really enjoy having you here. You've always been a welcome addition to the study. So welcome. Okay. So getting back to Milgram here. Basically, there are two phrases that are used, Kodesh and Kodesh Kodoshim, holy and holy of holies. And Milgram is trying to make sense of them, and it's very complicated, okay? In view of the plasticity of Kodesh Kodoshim, is it at all possible to determine the exact range of Kodshei Yahweh subject to Ma'al? And this goes back to Ma'al, right? This is the betrayal of God that we saw in right here in Leviticus 5:15, right? Ma'al. So we're saying, because here it mentions Kodshei Yahweh, okay? It mentions the holy things of Yahweh, that if you betray them, if you are unfaithful to them, or if you trespass against them, then you're supposed to bring the Asham offering, okay, the guilt offering. All right, so what is Milgram saying here? So he's basically saying that it's hard to know what that means, okay? So Mari is not of much help because there's only the barest warrant for associating Asaku, roughly equivalent of to taboo with Sancta. I'm not even going to get into this. So this is now speaking about Akkadian. It is, however, of relevance that the range of Asaku is unbounded. So the god or the king can designate any object he wishes as Asaku, spoils, e.g. spoils of war. So maybe it's Hittite, actually. 1 second. Just give me a second here. One second. Just want to look something up. So Mari is an ancient. All right, so let's just look at Mari for a second. Okay, so I don't get too off track. was an ancient Semitic city-state in modern-day Syria. It remains form a tell. I guess the form of a tell, 11 kilometers northwest of Abu Kamal, blah, blah, blah. The city was built in the middle of the Euphrates trade routes between Sumer in the south and the Eblaite kingdom and the Levant in the west. Mari was first abandoned in the middle of the 26th century BC, but was rebuilt and became a capital of the hegemonic East Semitic state before 2500 BC. Blah, blah, blah. It was destroyed in the 23rd century by the Akkadians, who allowed the city to be rebuilt and appointed a military governor. Okay. So I assume that this is speaking about the that what Milgram is speaking about here is the Akkadian period of Mari, because this certainly seems like Akkadian. So we'll assume. The fact is matched by the Hittite text instructions for the temple person. This is getting way too technical, in which sacrilege is possible with all sancta, blah, 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 blah. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. Fascinating to me, but I think it's just too technical, and we're going to get off on things that we don't want to get off. All right, so what did we want to do? Right. Okay, I think we're going to go on. So what it seems to be saying to me, these verses, is if you commit some kind of trespass. So to sum up, verses 14, Leviticus 5, 14 through 16 is saying, if you commit a trespass, a ma'al, by mistake, bishchaga, against the sancta of Yahweh, then you have to do two things. You have to bring an asham, you have to bring a guilt offering, which is an ayl tamim, an unblemished ram. A ram is a male sheep, okay? And you have to pay back 1 1/5 the amount. In other words, you add a fifth to the amount that you by mistake misused or took for yourself, okay? So if it was worth $10, 1/5 of 10 is 2, 10 plus 2 is 12. So you have to pay back $12 worth of stuff to the temple treasury. And then the Kohen is also going to take your guilt offering. All right, let's move on. Verse 17. Ve'im nefesh ki techata ve'asta hat mikol misvot Yahweh asher lo te'asena ve'lo yardar Hashem ve'Hashem ve'nasa wono. Okay, so if you've violated, so this is more a general sense, right? So if somebody sins, okay, and if you've violated any of the negative prohibitions, any of the negative commandments of Yahweh, right? So I don't know what would be a negative commandment. Do not eat unleavened bread on Passover or on Chag HaMatzot, okay? Do not eat chametz on the 7 days of Chag HaMatzot, which, by the way, are coming up for Karaites starting this Thursday night. The Rabbinites, their first Seder, their Seder is going to be on Wednesday night. If you're following the biblical calendar, then at least the one that I've been working on, then the first Seder is going to be Thursday night. So in other words, it's going to be the night of the second Seder of the Rabbinites for those who are keeping 2 nights. By the way, Friday day, I'm going to give a talk on Passover, Friday day, and I'll give more of an announcement about that. I'm actually a week from tomorrow. No, not from tomorrow, Sunday. A week from Monday, I'm going to be giving a talk at the local synagogue near where I live. And so I want to give that same talk here in advance to kind of prepare for the talk that I'm going to give at the local synagogue. And it should be a very interesting talk. Okay. At any rate, if you violated any negative commandment, v'lo yada, and you didn't know about it, so in other words, by mistake, v'ashem, and then you are literally v'ashem, and you are guilty. In other words, you found out about it, I guess is the implications there. V'nasa avono, or maybe you didn't find out about it. You're guilty, okay? V'nasa avono, then you basically you bear your sin. In other words, God may punish you in whatever way he sees fit, depending on how he decides to adjudicate the case, okay? Since he's the ultimate judge. That's what it seems to be saying. We'll get some translations, but that's the way I'm understanding that verse. No, so it's not ve'asham, so that would imply v'nasa avono. Okay, so it does mean you realize you're guilty, right? Because this next verse says ve'vi el tamim min hatzon, el tamim min hatzon. And how do we know that you found out you're guilty? Because you have to bring a sacrifice, right? If you don't know you're guilty, you can't decide to bring a sacrifice unless you said, "Oh shoot, I just realized that I ate chametz during Passover." Okay, which reminds me of a story. I always like to tell stories. Was as I was growing up in an Ashkenazi Jewish family, we followed kitniot, which basically meant we weren't allowed to eat anything over Passover, pretty much except water. Or as I always like to say, it was 1 week straight of eggs, potatoes, matzah, and matzah brie. That was it. I hated Passover growing up. I loved the Seder, but I hated the 7 days of Passover. No, I actually liked it because my dad would make matzah bries, and it was actually kind of nice. But I after about the second day, I couldn't take it anymore. Okay, but I remember one time I was playing with the neighbors across the street, who we were very close with. I must have been like, who knows, 10 years old or something like that. And they offered me popcorn, and I just started eating popcorn. And then about a couple minutes later, I just realized, oh my God, it's Passover. I'm eating popcorn. And I thought I'd committed the most horrible sin, because popcorn, if you're Ashkenazi, you're not allowed to eat corn, because you're not allowed to eat rice, corn, beans. Basically, you're not allowed to eat pretty much anything, right? So that's all considered kitniot. And I remember spitting the popcorn out of my mouth, and I remember feeling absolutely horrible. Okay. Well, as I grew up and later became a Karaite, I realized I had done absolutely nothing wrong, because it's completely legal to eat popcorn. Popcorn is not leavened bread, right? And but at the time, I remember feeling absolutely horrible, and that might be an example of a if it were indeed the case that one were not supposed to eat popcorn on Hakham Melech, on the 7 days of Passover, then that would be a case that's being described here. Okay, so I'm eating the popcorn. I don't realize I did it by mistake, and suddenly I realize I'm guilty. I've done something wrong, and then I'm going to bear my sin. Maybe I'm going to be judged and punished by God. But at any rate, what I need to do at that point is I need to bring a guilt offering, vevi al tamim, so that again is the unblemished ram, which we said already many times here, is a male sheep, minas on, from the flock, be'er or its equivalent value, right? In other words, its equivalent value in silver, okay, or maybe in any metal, but it's equivalent value, and we discussed extensively why this means equivalent value. Okay, now sham as a guilt offering, el kohen, to the kohen, v'chiper alau hakohen, and the kohen shall atone for him al shchagato, on his unintentional sin, asher shagar, which he unintentionally did or unintentionally committed, v'hu lo yadav v'nistalach lo, but didn't know about it. In other words, he didn't intentionally do it, v'nistalach lo, and he will be forgiven. Okay. Verse 19, v'sham hu asham leYahweh. So literally this says, and the guilt offering is a guilt offering of guilt offerings to Yahweh, or is guilt of guilt to Yahweh. Okay, what the heck does that mean? Well, remember, as we say probably about 5 times in every single study, repetition also always means emphasis. So maybe most certainly a guilt offering, but literally it's guilt of guilt, or guilt offering of guilt offerings to Yahweh. So I guess it's kind of like Kodesh Kodeshim, Holy of Holies, but it's guilt of guilt to Yahweh. All right, we'll try to get a little commentary on what that's trying to say. Let's maybe go to Robert Alter for that one. So that's verse 19. See how he translates it. So it is a guilt offering. He has surely incurred guilt to the Lord. Shamhu, it's a guilt offering. So Asham, I'm sorry, right. So Asham is actually, this is a verb, Asham, he was guilty, or he he did something guilt worthy. Okay, and okay, so this is a shomasham, right? Okay, I'm sorry. So this is actually part of that verb. So it's really a verbal repetition, a shomasham. And Robert Alter is correct in his translation. He has certainly incurred guilt, or he is guiltily guilted to Yahweh. Okay, no comment there by Robert Alter. And verse 20, there is no verse 20. So I think, again, we've seen sometimes the numbering system is a little bit different. And 1 second. Right. So here, okay, so I don't know which numbering system he's exactly using. Right. Then that's Tzav. So he's using a different numbering system. But here, Tzav et Aron vet Vanav. Okay, so this is really the beginning of our parsha here, Tzav. Okay. So I don't know why. Sometimes there are different numbering systems. I haven't figured out why exactly. Okay. Vidaber Yahweh el Moshe lemor. So this is our now Leviticus 6, but here he's listing that as Leviticus 5:20. Okay. And this is, as Milgram mentioned, this is the other type of asham, or the other type of ma'al, the other type of trespass that has to do with oaths. Okay. All right. Any comments? Any questions so far? I know this is very technical. I'm trying to make it as engaging and interesting as possible. Absolutely fascinating to me. I don't know if it is to you guys. It's certainly not as fun as watching Sodom and Gomorrah get destroyed by fire and brimstone. But it's to me, it's absolutely fascinating stuff. I hope that's coming across, and I hope you're finding it interesting as well. So let me stop for a second and ask: are there any questions or any comments before we go on? No. Okay, so let's go on. All right, so nefesh ki techteh. So anyone, any soul, or any person, or any person we'll go with ki techteh, that sins, uma'ala ma'al b'Yahweh, and betrays a betrayal against Yahweh. Okay, or certainly trespasses against Yahweh, or is most definitely unfaithful against Yahweh. Okay. Now let's contrast this with the previous. Let me do it like this. So it's the same language, more or less, except hello. Hebrew. There we go. So here we were talking again about any kind of trespass against what? Against the sancta of Yahweh, the holy things of Yahweh. Okay. So here it says, this is again back in chapter 5. And here in 6 it says, okay, nefesh ki techte uma'ala ma'al b'Yahweh. Here, nefesh ki tim'al ma'al v'chata b'shchara mikadshe Yahweh. So this is speaking specifically about the sancta of Yahweh, the holy things that are dedicated to the temple. Okay. Here we have, so that's from here to here. Okay. Someone who did something wrong with the holy things of the temple. Here's someone who unintentionally, of course. Here's someone who's unintentionally done something he was not supposed to do, right? Has violated a negative commandment, such as eating chametz on Passover. And here we have a more a different sense. Okay, so nefesh ki techteh ma'al b'Yahweh. So someone who has ma'ala ma'al, who has betrayed Yahweh, who has betrayed a betrayal or done a betrayal against Yahweh. And here we have the description of what he did here. Okay. 1. Kihesh ba'amito, בפיקדון, או בתשומת יד, או בגזל, או עשק את עמיתו. Okay? All right, so we have to define all these terms, right? So we have כחש בעמיתו בפיקדון, that's one thing, או בתשומת יד, okay? That's the second thing. Gazel is the third thing, or Ashaket Amito, that's the fourth thing. So we have four things here, okay? That he betrayed God by doing something wrong to his fellow man. All right, so let's get definitions of these four things. We can go to Robert Alter for that and see what he gives, and we can look at a couple of others as well. Okay, so dissemble with his fellow about a deposit or pledge. Okay, so that covers this. Okay. Or by theft, or defraud his fellow. Okay, so those are the four things right there. Okay, so what the heck does all that mean? Let's see. So Robert Alter doesn't really help us much here, right? So we're gonna have to look elsewhere. Let's see, who can we go to? Let's go to Ibn Ezra. Now we've done Ibn Ezra enough. Let's go to Hertz. Let's see what he has to say. Go to Rabbi Dr. Hertz. So okay. We got to go up a little bit. We got to go up. That's the Torah. No. Okay, here it is. So verse 21. Okay, so he's rabbinical, this guy, but he's good. He's not like cuckoo rabbinical. Okay. And let me bring this thingy up so I can mark it. Okay, so we're reading here, verse 21. So that's really against the Lord. So really that's our, remember the numbering is a little bit different here. So that's our Leviticus. So we're reading this here. That's our Leviticus 6:2. Okay, who is trespassed against the Lord. That's what we're talking about there. And Rabbi Dr. Hertz says, okay, against the Lord, Rabbi Akiva considered these seemingly superfluous words to be of great significance. They teach that man who falsely denied that he possessed his neighbor's property denied God, who is witness to the deposit. Philo's comment on this phrase is similar. He who deposits anything with his neighbor depends on the good faith alone of the man. Gotta get rid of this. Now I can't. Oh, I gotta get rid of this altogether. Hold on a second. Hold on. Pin. Get rid of that. Now I can go up. It's complicated, but okay. Now we're over here. Okay. Who receives it? There are no witnesses present except God, the most unerring and infallible witness who sees all the actions of men, whether they are willing that he should or not, should do so or not. So therefore, we can get a kishesh amito pikadon betzumet lev. So I think what this is saying. Okay, so what is a pikadon? A pikadon is a deposit, right? And kishesh means to deny. Okay, here the translation is lie. Robert Alter translates it as dissemble, whatever the heck that means. Everett Fox translates it as whatever person sins by doing that. Person sins breaking faith, yes, faith against Yahweh, by denying his fellows charges regarding a deposit or what is placed in one's hand for safekeeping. Okay, so that's much more straightforward. Okay. Denying his fellows charges regarding a deposit or what's placed in his hand for safekeeping. So what I understand that to mean, okay, Gehesh ba'amito b'pikadon. Okay, so pikadon is a deposit. So in other words, I give you a deposit. What would be an example of a deposit? Maybe we can find it used elsewhere. Hold on a second. We can find a good example. Pikadon is kid. Okay, so I guess what it I guess what it means is I give a deposit to someone. Let me think this out in my head now. Right? How does deposit work? Right? I don't know. I'm borrowing money from you that I'm going to pay back, but I leave a deposit in its place. Right? I leave a something with you that I say I'm going to take back when I pay you back your money. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Okay, and then I come back and I say, here's your money back. Give me back my car that I left with you. And you say, what car? I don't know what you're talking about. Car? You see a car here? I don't see a car here. Okay, something that maybe an Israeli might do. Sorry, Israelis. Okay. You see a car? I don't see a car. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So I think that's what it means, pikadon. But we'll try to maybe get a little bit more commentary on it. Or betsumat yad. So Everett Fox translates this as where was it? Well, Everett Fox. By denying his fellows charges regarding a deposit, right? So I want my deposit back, and you say, I left collateral with you, and I say I want it back, and you say, I don't know what you're talking about. What collateral? Okay, or what is placed in one's hand for safekeeping. So tzumet yad literally means placing, right? Tzumet is the placing in the hand. So I say, listen, would you do me a favor? I'm going away for a week. Could you look after my, my brand new $250,000 Ferrari? And you say, yeah, no problem. I got you covered. Man, go. Come back a week later, and you say, can I have my Ferrari back? And the guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. Ferrari? Do I look like the type of guy who has a Ferrari? I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Okay, get out of here. Go away. I think that's what that means. Okay. So it's basically the same kind of thing. Okay, one is a deposit. I leave the car with you as a deposit. The second one is I leave it in your safekeeping. Is it a shomer chinam? Is it shomer sachir? That's rabbinical terms, but I guess, did you pay the person to look after it, or is he doing it as a favor? Either way, right? The person doesn't want to, doesn't know what you're talking about, doesn't want to give you back what you left with him. Okay, or robbery, that's gezel, or by withholding property from his fellow, or ashak et amito. Okay, withholding property from his fellow. That's the way that Everett Fox translates it. Here they translate it as extorted. Okay, so I guess we'd really have to do a deep dive to know exactly what each of these terms are talking about. I think we get the general. Idea, right? And I don't think we want to go that deep, right? We want to move ahead a little bit, considering we haven't even gotten to this week's parsha yet. But we get the general idea, okay? So, we were looking at Hertz. So we'll just read the Hertz on that, okay? So I've got to hide this. So the first one we said was, okay, they teach the men. So the first one is, right, this is the kichesh. This is kichesh ba'amito b'pikadon. He denied to his fellow man regarding the deposit, or that he had had deposit, and we said that Rabbi Dr. Hertz says that this is talking about the man who falsely denied that he possessed his neighbor's property, okay? Denied God, who is witness to the deposit, okay? So that seems to be what Hertz is talking about and what Everett Fox is talking about, right? That you come to get your deposit back, and the guy says, I don't know what you're talking about, okay? Okay, then we have next, deal falsely. So that is speaking about Yad 21. Trespass against the Lord. Or deal falsely with his neighbor. Okay, deal falsely. Okay, so we'll just read what Hertz has to say here. Deal falsely. A second class of mi'ilah, embezzlement or misappropriation of property. The law here applies to cases which would not bring the offender within the jurisdiction of the civil courts. He had denied his guilt and sworn falsely. Later, his awakened conscience caused him voluntarily to confess his wrongdoing, though the rabbis regard a false oath as among the very gravest crimes. So I think this is talking about another verse. Neighbor, deposit. Okay. Wait a second here. Let me make just a little bit of sense of this. Against the Lord, deal falsely. So this is all within 21. So against the Lord, deal falsely with his neighbor. Okay. So he's talking about this word kichesh, which he's translating as deal falsely, deceive. Here it says lying. And he says, okay, so once again, he says that this is a second class of mi'ilah. Okay. Embezzlement and misappropriation of property. So we're talking about all four of these things, okay? Pikadon, sumet lev, gezel, and ashak et amito. The law here applies to cases which would not bring the offender within the jurisdiction of civil courts. He had denied his guilt and sworn falsely. Later, his awakened conscience caused him to voluntarily confess his wrongdoing, though the rabbis regard a false oath as among the very gravest crime. They accounted free confession of sin as a heroic moral act. Okay. Fine. And now, okay, so these are the four things here. Okay, deposit. So here he goes into it explicitly. Okay. He denies any article, that any article had been deposited with him. Here, pledge, security for a loan or the like. The rightful owner had no receipt to show that he had handed over the article. The accused, in the absence of witnesses, was only required to take an oath that he had not received the article and then was exempt from repayment. Should he subsequently confess his guilt, the procedure described in this paragraph applies. Okay, fair enough. Robbery, so that's gezel, gazel. Okay, oops. It's fun using this little tool. Includes theft and the profits. The word robbery includes any injustice based on the law, any legal pretext or trick by which the poor is deprived of what is his. The rabbis gave an even wider application to the term robbery. Thus, the owner of a field was not allowed to assign to his own poor relative the corner of the field that was left to all the poor, as he would therefore rob. Okay, that's kind of a general term. Okay. And then the last one is going to be, so this is 422. This is kind of a weird setup, 425. So I have to go up, actually. That's 423. And then oppress his neighbor. So that's here. This is the ashak et amito. Okay. Oshek or ashak, eshek. Okay, so Hertz says the withholding on any pretext of money due. Thus, the hired servant accuses the master of not having paid him his wages, and the latter asserts that he is paid. Okay. Alrighty. Enough of that. So, now we have more types. Okay. He found a lost object. We know there's a commandment in the Torah. If you find a lost object, you're supposed to return it. Okay. Where's that? So this is Deuteronomy 22:3. Okay. Second, וכן תעשה לך מרום וכן תעשה אשר תאבד ממנו מצאת לא תאכל. Okay. So we'll just read this verse, okay? So shall you do to his donkey, וכן תעשה לשמלתו, so shall you do to his raiment, whatever, his clothing. וכן תעשה לכל אבידת אחיך, and so shall you do for any lost object of your fellow man, of your brother, your fellow Israelite, אשר תאבד, that he should lose, ממנו, אשר תאבד ממנו, that should be lost from him, ומצאת לא תוכל להתעלם. And if you find it, you cannot ignore it. Okay? So in other words, if you find a lost object of your brother, of your fellow Israelite, then you're supposed to return it to him. Okay, that's Deuteronomy 22, 1 through 4. So here we have that same situation. Okay, I can't say it's the same law exactly because the law is not laid down here, but it's implying the same law that is later referred to in Deuteronomy 22. So he finds something that his fellow Israelite has lost, and he denies it. He lies about it. Okay, in other words, he's supposed to return it. He doesn't. He says, "I don't know. I found my that horse that wandered onto my property. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't see any horse. Do you see a horse? Hey, Chuck, you see a horse? Did you see a horse around here? No, I didn't see a horse either. Okay, that's what we're talking about, right? He refused, or he denied that he had found the lost object of his fellow Israelite. Okay. Oops. Okay. ונשבע על שקר על אחת מכל אשר יעשה האדם לחטוא בהנה. So now we had basically 5 situations, okay, but more than that, he swore al shakir. Okay. He made an oath. He made a false oath on these things, right? So in this case, so I think Hertz says it's not brought to the court system. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But either way, let's say it's brought to the court system, and the judge says, have you seen Ruvain's lost horse? And you say no, and the judge says you swear in the name of Yud Hey Wow Hey that you have not seen or taken your neighbor's lost horse, and you say, I swear in the name blah 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 that I have not seen or taken my neighbor's, or that I have not taken my neighbor's lost horse. Okay, but you have. Then that would be what nishba al shakir, that would be a false oath that you've done one of these things. Okay, so all of these cases, okay, Lamborghini, what Lamborghini? You left it here for me to guard? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember that, right? There are no witnesses, so it's my word against your word. So what you do is you take an oath, right? So that's what it's talking about. These, I guess, total of 5 cases. All right, so Hertz says about that one, where were we? Right, 24, or anything about which he has sworn falsely. So the numbering is a little bit different here, as we said. It doesn't matter, okay? Anything about which he's sworn falsely. Where were we? If he has sinned, Bahena v'hayaki yachteh, v'ashem, Okay, so now this is our verse 4, and Hertz says say about. So let's get a translation for this. So it shall be that if he has sinned, or if he will sin, with Hashem, and he admits his guilt, I guess. Okay, or he's found guilty or admits his guilt. Hishiv et ha-gizela asher gazal, or et ha-oshek asher ashak, or et ha-pikadon asher hafkad ito, or et ha'aveda asher matza. Okay, so he admits his guilt. He feels guilty about it, or maybe he's found out. I think it means he admits his guilt or decides to admit his guilt. Veshiv et ha-gizela asher gazal. Okay. So he shall return that which he returns that which he stole, the stolen thing which he stole, or the oshek asher ashak, or he how do we translate that one again? Whatever the oppression, how do they translate here? The thing which he extorted. Okay, we'll go with that translation for now. Or the pikadon asher hafkad, or the deposit which he had deposited, meaning which his fellow Israelite had deposited with him, or the avida asher matzah, or the lost object of his fellow Israelite which he found. So basically, he admits his guilt. He feels guilty about it, and he decides, "I'm going to set things straight." Okay. Verse 5: "O mikol asher yishaba alav," or any other thing which he swears over it, lasheker, falsely, ushilem oto berosho, v'chamishoto. ושילם אותו בראשו ובחמישיתו יוסף עליו. Okay, so he shall pay it back according to its principle, literally according to its head. But that means he shall pay back the value of the thing he stole, right, or lied about. וחמישיתו יוסף עליו, and he shall add another fifth upon it. Okay, so I found your horse. It was worth $1,000. Okay, I hid it in my barn, and I said, I don't know anything about your horse. I haven't seen any horse. What horse? And then later I say, you know what? This is wrong. I got to set things straight. So then the requirement at that point is he gives back the horse, and he pays another fifth. So if the horse is worth $1,000, he pays back. He pays $200 extra dollars to the person from whom he took the horse and didn't return it. Okay. Okay, let's get that in context. עליו לשקר ושילם אותו בראשו וחמישיתו יוסף עליו לאשר הוא לא ויתננו ביום אשמתו. Okay, and he shall give it back to whom it belongs. Okay, on the day that he admits his guilt. All right. So basically, when he decides to admit his guilt, he does restitution by giving back the original object or the value of the object and adding another 20% onto it. And then in verse 6, we're going to see he also brings a guilt offering. Okay. All right. So let's get a little bit more commentary here. We'll go back to Hertz. All right. So we have here, in the day of his being guilty, i.e. on the day when he makes voluntary acknowledgement of his guilt, or on the day of his guilt offering, he is to repay that what it was worth at the time he misappropriated it, plus a fifth. Okay? Right. So verse 6, Wa'et en shamo yavi le Yahweh al tamim min hatzaon bi'erkecha le'asham el hakohen. So verse 6, and he shall also bring a guilt offering. Okay, so now this is the third case of a guilt offering. Okay, so let's just review very briefly. The first case of a guilt offering was accidentally misappropriating the sancta of Yahweh. The second one was doing a thing that the Torah commands us not to do, that we're commanded not to do. And now the third thing is committing one of these economic crimes and then swearing falsely that you didn't do it, not knowing what happened to the person's deposit or not returning his lost object, etc. So in the first case, what do? In all three cases, you bring a guilt offering, an asham. Okay. In the first case, one second. Right. In the first case, the misappropriation, the accidental misappropriation of that which is dedicated to the sanctuary, then you return it plus a fifth. In the second case, you've violated negative commandment, so there's no fifth, there's no value here, right? You don't add a fifth to anything, you just bring the guilt offering. In the third case, with the deposits and the not returning the lost object, you again return it plus another fifth, and you bring the guilt offering. That's verse 6 here. We'll read that right now. So he shall bring his guilt offering to Yahweh. Hakhamim, an unblemished ram, which we said is a male sheep, minas on from the flock, be'er kecha, or its equivalent value, le'asham el hakohen, as a guilt offering to the kohen. Verse 7. Wachiper alau hakohen lifnei Yahweh, and the kohen shall restitute for him, shall atone for him before Yahweh. Wanislach lo, and he shall be forgiven alachat mikol asher ya'aseh la'ashema ba, for any one of all of these things which he should be guilty of. Okay, so this might be a summary sentence just for. No, it is a summary sentence just for these things here, because we have a similar summary sentence here, right? So yeah, we have similar summary sentences. So I assume this is a summary. It might be a summary sentence for the whole guilt offering section, meaning from Leviticus 5:14 through Leviticus 6:7, or it might just be a summary sentence for just this area here. I think maybe for the whole thing. Okay, but that's it. That's the guilt offering. Okay, God. And now we actually get to the beginning of our parsha. But you know what? It doesn't matter. We don't have to follow a set schedule. We can just do. Hard to be mad about it when Torah is done. Right rulings are so yummy and bring peace. Okay, nicely said. All right. Wow, very technical, but very interesting. I mean, it's really fascinating stuff to me, I must say. Okay. Now, I'm going to go for about another half an hour, which means that we have to cover basically the rest of 6, 7, and 8. So I think what I'm going to do is go into what I like to call express mode, and I'm just going to read through with almost none or minimal commentary. Gosh, I'm a little bit tired, but this is very, very detailed stuff. It requires a lot of thinking, but I think we really learned a lot today. Maybe we didn't get through the parsha, but my goal is never to have a predetermined goal that we have to accomplish. We get into the Torah, we see where it leads us, we learn what we can learn, and whatever we didn't get to, no big deal. Get to it another time. Okay, it's what we did learn, not what we didn't learn. That's the way I always look about it. And we actually did a lot, right? We went into Joshua. We spoke about a number of stories with Joshua, with Achan. We stole the sanctified, the cherem, the spoils that were supposed to be dedicated to the temple treasury or to the tabernacle treasury. We spoke about the secondary altar that the 2.5 tribes to the east of the Jordan built, and we related that to the word ma'al, right, as a betrayal or a trespass or an unfaithfulness, right? So we really covered a lot of stuff today. So I'm going to go into express mode here. And I'm just going to try to read through the rest of the parsha, okay, as best as I can, and then we're going to end the study, okay? I think I will take a 5-minute break at this point and come back in about 5 minutes, because a lot of talking here this time because it's such detailed, complex, complicated stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me put on a little bit of music and be back in about
La rosa in flores en el mes de mayo, mi alma se crece, sufriendo de amor. En florece en el mes de mayo, mi alma mi alma se escurece, sufriendo de amor. Los bilbilicos cantan, suspirando el amor, y la pasión me mata, mujigo a mi dolor, y la pasión me mata, mujigo a mi dolor. Más presto ven palomba, más presto ven a mí, más presto tú mi alma, que yo me voy a morir, más presto tú mi alma, que yo me voy a morir, 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 morir.
אוויר הרים צלול כיין וריח אורנים נישא ברוח הרגעים עם כל פעמונים ובתרדמה אילן באבן שבויה בחלומה העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובליבה ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל בבואי היום לשיר אליו ולך לקשור כתרים. קטונתי מצעיר בנייך ומאחרוני המשוררים. כשמך צורבת שפתיים כנשיקה צרה. אם אשכח לך ירושלים אשר כולה זהב. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור. הלא לכל שירייך אני תינוק. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור. הלא לכל שירייך אני תינוק.
Okay, welcome back. Let me turn this off. Let me just go through this rather quickly. I'll go for about another 15-20 minutes and then I'm just going to stop. Okay, so we're at the burnt offering. Let me just make sure everything looks good here. Yes. So, וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, צב את אהרון ואת בניו, לאמור זאת תורת העולה, היא העולה על מוקדה על המזבח כל הלילה עד הבוקר, ואש המזבח תוקד בו. Okay. ולבש הכהן מידו בד ומכנסי בד ילבש על בשרו והרים את הדשן אשר תאכל האש את העולה על המזבח ושמו אצל המזבח. Verse 11. ופשט את בגדיו ולבש בגדים אחרים והוציא את הדשן אל מחוץ למחנה אל מקום טהור. Verse 12. והאש על המזבח תוקד בו, לא תכבה, וביער עליה כהן עצים בבוקר, וערך עליה העולה, והתיר עליה חלבי השלמים. Well, this is important, bi'er, because it has to do with Exodus 35:3, right? Lo tivaru esh b'chol moshvetechem. But we don't have time to get into it right now. Esh tamid tukad al hamizbech lo tikhbeh. One second here. Okay. וזאת תורת המנחה, הקרב אותה בני אהרון לפני יחווה אל פני המזבח. Verse 15. ואחרים ממנו בקום עשו מסולת המנחה ומשמונה ואת כל הלבונה אשר על המנחה והאקטיר המזבח הריח ניחוח אז קראתה ליחווה. והנותרת ממנה יאכלו אהרון ובניו מסות תאכל במקום קדוש בחצר אוהל מועד יאכלוה. Verse 17. לא תאפה חמץ חלקם נתתי אותה מאישי קודש קודשים היא כי חטאת וכאשם. כל זכר בבני אהרון יאכלנה חוק עולם לדורותיכם. מאישי יחווה כל אשר יגע בהם יקדש. Let's put this back up. Okay. Verse 19. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, זה קורבן אהרון ובניו אשר יקריבו ליחווה ביום היא משך אותו. עשירית האפה סולת מנחה תמיד, מחציתה בבוקר ומחציתה בערב. Verse 21. על מחבת בשמן תעשה מורבכת תביאנה תופני מנחת פיתים תקריב ריח ניחוח ליחווה. והכהן המשיח תחתיו מבניו יעשה אותה חוק עולם ליחווה קליל תקטר. Verse 23. וכל מנחת כהן קליל תהיה לו תאכל. Verse 24. וידבר יחווה אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו לאמור, זאת תורת החטאת במקום אשר תשחט העולה תשחט החטאת לפני יחווה קודש קודשים היא. Verse 26. והכהן המחטא אותה יאכלנה במקום קדוש תאכל בחצר אוהל מועד. Verse 27. כל אשר יגע מבשרה יקדש, ואשר יזה מדמה על הבגד אשר יזה עליה תכבס במקום קדוש. Verse 28. וכלי חרס אשר תבושל בו יישבר, ואם בכלי נחושת בושלה ומורק ושותף במים. Verse 29. כל זכר בכהנים יאכל אותה קודש קודשים היא. Verse 30. וכל חטאת אשר יובא מדמה אל אוהל מועד לכפר בקודש לא תאכל, באש תשרף. Chapter 7. Zot said, he was talking about the different types of sacrifices that were called Kodesh Kodeshim, Holy of Holies, right? Verse 2. במקום אשר ישחטו את העולה, ישחטו את האשם ואת דמו, יזרוק על המזבח סביב. Verse 3. ואת כל חלבו יקריב ממנו את העלייה ואת החלב המכסה את הקרב. Verse 4. ואת שתי הכלאיות ואת החלב אשר עליהן אשר על הכיסלים ואת היותרת על הכובד על הכלאיות יסירנה. Verse 5. והתיר אותם הכהן המזבחה אישה ליחווה אשם הוא. Verse 6. כל זכר בכהנים יאכלנו במקום קדוש יאכל קודש קודשים הוא. Verse 7. כי חטאת כאשם תורת אחד להם, הכהן אשר יכפר בו לא יהיה. Verse 8. והכהן המקריב את עולת איש, אור העולה אשר הקריב לכהן לא יהיה. Verse 9. וכל מנחה אשר תאפה בתנור, וכל נעשה במרחשת ועל מחבת לכהן המקריב אותה לא תהיה. verse 10, וכל מנחה בלולה בשמן וחרבה לכל בני אהרון תהיה איש כאחיו. verse 11, peace offering. וזאת תורת זבח השלמים אשר יקריב ליהוה. אם על תודה יקריבנו, והקריב על זבח התודה חלות מסות בלולות בשמן ורקקי מסות משוחים בשמן, וסולת מורבכת חלות בלולות בשמן. verse 13. על חלות לחם חמץ יקריב קורבנו על זבח תודת שלומו. verse 14. ויקריב ממנו אחד מכל קורבן תרומה ליהוה לכהן הזורק את דם השלמים לא יהיה. verse 15. ובשר זבח תודת שלומו ביום קורבנו יאכל לא יניח ממנו עד בוקר. ואם נדר ונדבה זבח קורבנו ביום קריבו את זבחו יאכל ממחרת והנותר ממנו יאכל. verse 17. והנותר מבשר הזובח ביום השלישי באש ישרף. verse 18. ואם האכול יאכל מבשר זבח שלמו ביום השלישי לא ירסה, המקריב אותו לא יחשב לו פיגול יהיה, והנפש האוכלת ממנו עוונה תישא. Okay, this goes on for a long time. I think I'm going to stop here because it's very complicated, and I think I'm just going to end it here. It's been a long study. So I want to thank you all for joining me. We will pick it up next week. Be'ezrat Yahweh, we'll pick it up next Shabbat. And on Friday day, I will plan to do a Passover talk, which I will let you know about. Okay, I'll advertise that on the various Facebook groups, etc. So that being said, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov. Look forward to seeing you all next week. And we'll take it from there. Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.